Okay, one second. We're just gonna start the Facebook live stream. Sorry. Yeah, I think we're good. You can go ahead. Okay, we're good. Thank you.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the May 26th meeting. Are there any questions or concerns?
Mr. Chairman, Dennis here. I will abstain from voting. I did not get the minutes in time to review. And so I'm not able to provide a comment on if they're accurate or not. So I'll be abstaining from voting on this. I would prefer that it be deferred to the next meeting because, but that's up to each individual member to decide if they had enough time to review it or not.
So through the chair, Dennis, we did send the agenda out on Friday. So the only additions that we had with respect to that agenda were the comments for the town of Aylmer with respect to E40 and 41. E40 and 41.
The minutes were added on Monday morning.
And oh, I see. The minutes were added on Monday morning. I understand. Okay. So,
Okay.
Okay. So if you don't feel that you can vote, then that's fair.
What's the wish of the?
No, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
no, I think that it needs to be clarified that I didn't receive it in time. It's not that I feel a certain thing. I did not receive the minutes in time to be able to review them accurately. And I think that should be reflected in the minutes and not that I just feel a certain way.
What's the rest of the members? Jack?
Yeah, I don't believe the minutes were received until last night at 4:30. I didn't see them before that. I read everything over the weekend and the minutes weren't there. I didn't receive minutes on Monday. I got them. They arrived yesterday at 4:26. I worked till 5:30. Then had to go to my mother's, was home at 6:30, had supper. I didn't see them till 9 o'clock last night.
I did not receive them either till that notification came across that there was another package on the had been sent.
So I apologize. I didn't realize that they were not in the original send out from Friday. So
It's my error not to send out an email saying that I had added them Monday morning.
so we apologize for that.
Okay, what's the wish of the committee?
Whatever you
I
want.
agree with Dennis. I think we should defer them because I didn't even look at my computer this morning, so I didn't even know they were there till 7:30 this morning.
So can we have a motion to defer them?
That,
Andrew?
Dennis.
Moved by Dennis, seconded by John. Was that John Andrew?
Andrews, yep.
Any further questions, comments? I'll ask the vote be called.
John Andrews,
Yes.
Ian Fleck,
Yes.
Dennis O'Grady, Rosemary Kennedy,
No.
John Selden. Is John Selden here?
He's not.
Okay. Jack Van Kasteren
Yes,
and Doug Aldred.
Are you with us, Duke?
on mute, maybe.
Now I'm back. I'm yes.
There he is.
I got lost in outer space for half a minute.
Okay.
Okay,
Doug, are you a yes or a no for this one?
I'm a yes.
Thank you. All right, so the motion carries.
okay. The next item of business is appeal of E14-21 377 Warren Street.
So we just wanted through you, Chair, I just wanted the committee to be aware that that application had been appealed by a neighbor. So we are working with the local planning approvals tribunal to schedule a date for an upcoming hearing. From what I understand, there may be the potential for the applicant, the neighbor to also appeal the zoning for the site as well. So there may be amalgamation of appeals depending on what happens. So I just wanted you to be aware of it.
Thank you. Is there any comments from any member? Jack?
Just to clarify then, Nancy, the appeal is of the decision of the Land Division Committee?
That's correct. Yes.
So it'll come before us again at some point. Is that right?
No, through you, Mr. Chair, what would happen is we would attend the board because our comments supported the LDC's decision. So a planner will attend based on that. And then I wouldn't expect that we would come back to the committee until we have a decision from the LPAD on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Thank you. Is there any other inquiries from the Land Division Committee members?
If I may, Mr. Chair,
Yes, Jack?
based on the previous vote there about the minutes being deferred, is it possible at all, just throwing it out there, that the minutes could be sent out individually once they're completed following a meeting, whether it be a week later or 2 weeks later? Well, things are still fresh in our minds that we can read through the minutes and make a note that, yeah, they're approved, or make notes of any errors or omissions for the next meeting, rather than having them first look at the minutes a month later. Just wondered what people think about that.
Well, as chairman, I agree with that. Normally, to see the minutes, even if it's 2 weeks later, we get them and have them for a couple of weeks before we have the next meeting, so we have time to really review them. Because it seems we're having more applications all the time.
Yeah, it does make it difficult a month after the fact to remember everything that was said or decisions that were made. And it does take a fair bit of time, if we're gonna do them properly, to go through and look for any errors or omissions, in my opinion.
Any other comment from any other committee members?
Well, I think it was possible to get
agree.
them early would be good. It spreads the workload out a little. We don't have to consider the minutes at the same time we're going over all the applications.
So all the members agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, through you, Mr. Chair, then we can circulate the minutes to the committee members. What would be the good deadline for that? 2 weeks after the meeting?
I would say take no later than 2 weeks.
No later than 2 weeks. Okay. So Ashleen will make a note of that then.
Mr. Chairman,
That's
just a
doable.
quick,
Yes, Mr.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
it's a quick question on E20. Has the appeal been filed yet? Do we know the reason? That one seemed like rather non-controversial.
You mean on E1421?
Oh, sorry.
Through you, Mr. Chair,
14.
yes, it was filed by, if you recall during the meeting, there was several people that provided comments, not verbally, but through email correspondence that was attached. And so that one of those people was the one to appeal it.
Okay.
Any further?
Reasons for appeal, I'm sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, just so you're aware, the reasons for appeal were impact to the environment predominantly.
Okay.
There's a classic case through you, Mr. Chair. This is a classic case of my memory's good. It's just real short. So I'm trying to remember what E1421 was. Is that the one in Port Stanley?
That's the one, I believe that's the one in Port Stanley, is it not, Nancy?
That's correct. It's the one on Warren Street, which is right by the river as it comes up and around. So it was
Yeah.
the severance was basically amalgamating the floodplain lands and
Right.
then creating a parcel that they were looking to do townhouses on in the future.
Right. Yep, that's what I thought. Thank you.
You're welcome. We, through you, Mr. Chair, we do have several minutes if you'd like to discuss maybe one of the items that the committee, that we have on the agenda at the end of the
Yes.
agenda. If you'd like to bring one of those up, we can maybe discuss them now in the last 5 minutes here.
Okay, we have one of the items, and I think it'll be a short, was a discussion of the number of applicants heard per meeting. We seem to be getting more, and there's more interest in, I know in my area, and that people are trying to sever houses, but also looking at where they can get more lots on a county road or on even a township paved road. So what is the wish of the committee members for the number of applicants that we hear? Do you want to be, if we had a lot, go into the afternoon after lunch?
Sure. We used to put in full days, like we would get out of there at 3 or 4 o'clock before.
Well, my concern too is, as chairman, we shouldn't hold back because we've got so many applicants. Keep deferring some people, telling them, well, you put in now, we're not going to hear it till say August, September.
I agree with that, Mr. Chair. I don't think we should become a stumbling block to getting applications heard.
What do the other members feel on that item?
I agree with that
I also
too.
agree with that.
You, Mr. Chair, I think
Well,
we should
and,
hear them if they
a short-
come.
Duke's first. Go ahead, Duke.
I think we should hear them as come in and not create a backlog, especially when there seems to be more applications all the time.
Yes. Okay, Dennis, you have a comment?
Mr. Chairman, I agree, and we don't need to go out for lunch. We can just have a short break where maybe sandwiches or something like that just get brought in, take a 15-minute break, and grab a quick bite, and then go. I know in the past we've gone out for lunch, but I don't think that's necessary.
I agree.
I agree.
I agree with Dennis.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just so you know, the issue came up because some of the townships have been experiencing a high volume that have come in. It's an anomaly, I will admit. I don't think it's going to be the norm necessarily, but when there's, for instance, 8 applications on the Malahide, that Malahide has to deal with for next month, they don't have the ability to bring all of those to council. So I discussed it with the planner for the township, and I think if they don't have the ability to bring all of those applications to a committee meeting, a council meeting, sorry, they do have the ability to defer or ask for a deferral on a particular application. And then that would be something that we could defer to the next month until they have the ability to get their council endorsement or recommendation. That seems to be a good interim measure, basically, for the amount of applications that are being received. Again, I don't anticipate that necessarily it'll happen every month for every municipality, but there is the potential that occasionally there could be a lot of applications in one municipality.
Yes, I agree. And I think we should leave it that Nancy report back at the next meeting of what she's heard from other municipalities. We can go from there. And if we have to make a decision to meet for the July meeting for an extra hour and just have a quick bite to eat cookies or something, and we'll go from there. If the members agree with that, let Nancy make the decision.
Yes.
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 Is that okay, Nancy?
Sure. So just to clarify, I will be making the decision if we have, rather I will be deciding which applications go based on the amount that we receive. But also I will reach out to the municipalities just to clarify with them if they have any issues with the amount that's being provided, that they can request deferral if they aren't able to bring all of the reports to a particular committee, council.
Yes.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Nancy, wouldn't it be just as simple as whatever applications are completed at the township level or municipality level and submitted to the land division committee ready to be voted on? We're going to hear them all. If they're not ready and they want to request a deferral, then we're going to defer. Wouldn't it
That's
be
right.
that simple, cut and dried?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes. We won't know until they provide their comments, though, which ones will be deferred. But yes, I would assume that that's what we would rely on, is the local municipalities to tell us that they wouldn't be able to review all of them, and therefore they'd be looking for a deferral on X number.
Yes.
So this might seem like a,
Jack?
sorry, this might seem like a stupid question, but why would the municipality forward it to the land division committee partially completed and ask for a deferral? Why would they not just withhold that and the land division committee wouldn't even see it because it's not ready to be acted on.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I do know that they need a recommendation from their council typically, even for a deferral, from what I understand. It's not, I don't think they can administratively ask for it, so they wouldn't be able to just tell us based on staff availability, this is going to be deferred. They can let us know they're going to recommend deferral, but I think they would actually need a recommendation from their council.
And what we're running into, I think, Nancy, too, is July and August, most councils, instead of meeting twice a month, meet once a month.
Precisely. Exactly.
Okay, that's the discussion. Any more discussion on that one? It's now 9:50, 9:17. Any more discussion?
Nope.
Nope.
We'll proceed with application E 2021. Just finding it on my, excuse me for a minute here while I find it. Okay, application E 2021. Municipal address is 11232 Willie Road, Dutton, Dunwich. Take notice that an application has been made by John and Teresa Vanderveen, 9677 Carter Road, Elmer, for consent pursuant to 53 of the Planning Act as amended to sever lands municipally known as 11232 Willie Road, Municipality of Dutton, Dunwich. The applicants propose to sever a parcel with a frontage of 70.2 meters, 230 feet, 230.1 or 31 feet along Willie Road by a depth of 114.049 meters, which is 374.18 feet, and an area of 0.84 hectares or 2.07 acres, containing one residence surplus to the needs of the owners. The owners are retaining 36.6 hectares, 90.44 acres, proposed to remain in agricultural use. And does the applicant or any or agent for the applicant and interested parties who wish to speak to this application, and please introduce themselves to the committee.
Yes, good morning. It's Dave Rowe. I'm the agent for the applicant. I believe my clients, as well as Dave Durham, were also going to participate in this morning's meeting.
Okay, we proceed. Is Ashleen, are you speaking first?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The municipality of Dunwich, Dutton recommends approval for this severance subject to the provided conditions. County engineering has indicated this subject site is not on a county road and the Conservation Authority has no objections. Furthermore, Elgin County Planning has taken a look at this, and we also recommend approval subject to our two standard conditions, being a digital copy of the draft and final deposit reference plan be provided to the county, and a solicitor undertaking to provide a copy of registered deed for the severed parcel once completed. Conditions included from the municipality of Dutton Dunwich are as follows: that a zoning bylaw amendment is in force and effect for the severed and retained parcels, that a septic system review for the severed parcel has been completed, that a municipal drain reapportionment has been completed, that a mutual drain agreement under Section 2 of the Drainage Act has been provided to provide a legal drainage outlet for the newly created residential lot, that 2 hard copies and 1 digital copy of the registered survey have been provided to the municipality, taxes are to be paid in full, that all Dunwich planning application fees as set out in the fees bylaw to be paid to the municipality. The solicitor provides an undertaking that a copy of the registered deed for the severed parcel once the transaction has occurred is provided to the municipality, that the barn be removed from the severed parcel prior to the stamping of the deeds, subject to the satisfaction of this chief building official, And finally, that the applicant confirm with the municipality that the purchaser is a bona fide farmer.
Is there any comments from any of the agents?
Yeah, the purchaser is Dave Durham. And he is quite a significant land holding in Dunwich. And I believe he does, he and his wife do qualify. The applicant wished to keep the existing barn. That's, I guess, been his position. I don't have much more to add than that.
Is there any other agents or Mr. Durham or anybody there?
Yeah, I'm in attendance. I own the neighboring property. This property neighbors my home property. That piece is about 250 acres, and it's next door to the west. So it's just going to be an addition to my holdings in that area.
Any comments from any of the members of the committee?
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Doug.
So the application is being made by current owners or the people that own the house? I'm a little confused on this one. Who currently owns the property?
Okay, the Vanderdeens own the farm, and the Durhams are the qualified purchaser of the farmlands, and the ones qualified for the severance.
Okay. So, and then when we're going down through here and the provincial policy review part, it states that the surplus residence results from farm consolidation for the current owners. So this really isn't a farm consolidation for the current owners, is it?
Well, what they do have a purchase and sale agreement, and this has been the practice in Elgin. What happens is the entire farm is conveyed to Durham, and then Mr. Durham gets the severance and conveys the severed lot back to the original owner. That's the process. Perhaps Nancy can comment more on the practice in Elgin.
Through you, Mr. Chair, since I've been in attendance in June, we've done several of these whereby the surplus farm dwelling essentially will stay with the owner of the property, and the farmlands are being consolidated with another farmer. The policies of the Elgin County are very, they're not particularly, how do I say this? They're very loose in terms of what they say. It basically just talks about farm consolidation, but it doesn't talk about who owns the farm, for instance. And in this particular case, we also take our direction from the local municipality, which had no issue with this and just recommended conditions. So that is generally why there is support for this.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead, Dennis.
There was a session at the conference that talked about this very specific issue, and the appeals tribunals have said that if someone has an interest in the land, then they can make the application for severance, so long as it's clear that that permission has been given properly by the current owner. So someone who is making an offer to purchase, they're not the current owner, but they have an interest in the land, and if the current owner agrees to that and it's in writing and we're aware of it, then the appeals tribunals have ruled that that's okay. So I don't know if anybody else sat in on that Ask a Lawyer session. So because I had that same question early on with all of these people who had an interest but weren't the owners, but apparently the appeals tribunals are okay with that. That might be something, Nancy, that you could find in one of those handouts or something from the conference, and just that aside, so that if the question comes up again, we've got it from a legal source that that's okay as long as it's done in a certain process.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we can also perhaps go an extra step and require, right now, our application form only says owner and agent. So we could always add in then a section for applicant, for instance, and then have the authorization filled out as well with respect to an applicant who is interested in obtaining the lands or whatever the case may be, as long as they have the permission, like you said, of the owner.
Thank you.
I like that idea.
Comments?
I like that idea, Nancy, that it's right on the application, because I agree with Duke. I've been confused by some of these in the past, saying, you know, this is the applicant and this is the purchaser, but there's no mention of the other party. So if that was on the application, it would clarify it, the situation.
I have one comment that's come back to me, is that when we ask for it, we ask for the address and not just the roll number, because the roll number doesn't tell anybody else that's looking at this application where the numbers are or where the property is. So Nancy, do you have any comment on that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I did ask Mr. Rowe to follow up with addresses for the roll numbers that were provided, and he indicated that there was no 911 addresses for some of these. So I'll let Mr. Rowe respond.
Yeah, let me respond to that one. Mr. Rowe asked me for the addresses of all the farm properties I listed. Well, they don't have addresses because they're just farm properties, so there's no 911 numbers on them. But when I listed out the roll numbers, I also put the lot and concession. So the lot and concession tells you exactly where they are.
My understanding just is that when places, and I think we've seen it as members, when a severance is done, the municipality asks for a blue number because there's no way for any emergency group or anybody to get to that farm.
None of the severances I've done in the past have, and I've done quite a number in the past, have 911 numbers on them.
Yeah, if I could maybe add my 2 cents in there, having been in a previous life responsible for setting up 911 systems in municipalities, what we found is initially, and I worked in Hallam and Norfolk, and on the first cut through, we only provided 911 numbers on properties where there were houses or businesses, buildings. We then had to go back and add 911 numbers to vacant parcels. The concern being if a farmer had an accident on his tractor, he wouldn't have, there wouldn't be a 911 number appropriate. So we went back and did that. We also found that some of our parks, where of course kids would be playing, also didn't have 911 numbers, and we had to go back and assign them numbers and assign them blue signs, in our case green signs, to do that. So I find it is a bit hit and miss, because 911 numbering falls to the local municipality. So some have 911 numbers on every parcel, and others don't. So yeah, it seems that in Dunwich there probably is a need for them to relook at that particular issue.
Okay, just there was a comment because I had that comment from somebody that had asked the township to look at this application, and it didn't list what roads the properties were on and everything. And I'm only bringing the comment forward.
Yeah, it's frustrating when you don't have a 911 number, quite frankly.
Any further comments on this application?
Nope.
Just one more comment there, Ian, like in the Dunwich part of it, and I'm not saying it's got anything to do with the application, but it's the way Dunwich is putting it in really isn't right, because they're saying it confirms with their OP, and then part of that is that the applicant has indicated that retained lands will maintain their current use. Well, when the applicant isn't even going to own the maintained lands, I don't know how they're going to say that the maintained lands are going to maintain their current use. Nothing against the applicant. It's just the way that Dunwich is saying they go against it, and then you read down their page and it doesn't go with their.
Any other comments?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can't clarify though that, the retained lands in this particular case. So, the condition, Dun, which has asked for the standard condition, which is to remove the ability for the, surplus farmlands to, have a house, a dwelling be constructed on it. So, that's a standard and that's, normally a condition that will always be applied. Secondly, these are agriculturally designated and zoned lands, so really the uses are limited in terms of what anyone can do. Basically, they can farm and that's about it. Potentially have livestock operation, but that's really the only permitted uses on this site. So at the end of the day, these lands will continue to be farmed or remain in farming, in terms of zoning. So even though, the municipality has indicated that, that the applicant has said this, realistically, there isn't really anything else that can be done. These cannot be developed. For instance, they're not in a settlement area. They are, only zoned to permit agricultural uses.
I have one comment and my comment to it is if the barns are taken down, which they have to be done, that lot could be squared up instead of having that one jig on one side. Because it's over the 2 acres, but if the barns are being taken down, then that's where that jig is on the side there, that could be squared, that property could be squared. Any comment, Dave?
Yeah, I agree that that would be the case. Perhaps Nancy could suggest a wording to that effect, that with the barns being removed, that the lot line be adjusted accordingly. I think something like that, because then as the county, she would be the one stamping the deed, so she would be the one approving the final survey. So I think it could be done that way, and leave it up to Nancy what she thinks.
What's the rest of the board members feel on that?
Mr. Chairman, Dennis, I thought that was a good idea. So I'll make the motion that once the barns are removed or the lot be squared up, I'm not quite sure myself the proper terminology. Property boundaries be rectangular. I don't know how to word it.
We have a mover. Is there a seconder? Anybody second that motion?
I will, Ian.
Seconded by Rosemary. Any further discussion?
One point here, if we do pass this, we have to make sure we pass it with the council conditions, not the planner's report, because the planner's report makes no mention of the barns coming down.
That's right.
That's only mentioned in the council resolution.
That's right. So it has to be the township's report.
Because the council resolution came June 9th, the planner's report we have is still from April.
Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
Report is not updated.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that's correct. So, the planner for Dun, which pointed out that the recommendation came from council and did add additional comments. So I believe in our county comments, we've utilized the council recommendations, I believe. But either way, we can put that as part of the motion that Land Division Committee is adopting the council conditions from Dunwich.
Yes. Any further comment on this one?
No.
So what's the wish of the committee?
Call the vote.
John Andrews,
Yes.
Ian Fleck,
Yes.
Dennis O'Grady,
Yes.
Rosemary Kennedy,
Yes.
John Selden,
Nancy, can I abstain on this? I didn't catch enough of the presentation.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Nancy, I've been really struggling to get into the meeting, and I just got in just a short while ago, so I haven't heard. The whole discussion. I abstain on this. Does that cause a problem?
Not a problem. This is John Selden, correct?
Yep.
Yes,
No problem, John.
thank you.
Jack Van Castren,
Yes,
Hugh Aldred.
Yes.
All right, so the motion carries.
So to clarify, the motion is to approve the severance with the council conditions as per Dutton Dunwich. And as well, it would be to revise the surplus farm dwelling parcel to remove the lands that would formerly contain the barn in order to create a more rectangular shape. So we won't have an area necessarily for that, but we will assume that once those barns have been removed, we can certainly square them off and basically reduce them.
It's good.
agreed.
Great.
Okay. So the decision rendered today for this application will be circulated within 15 days after the notice. There is a 20-day appeal period from the giving of the notice of decision in which any person.
It's the one that's exactly the same sort of thing, so I think I'm gonna lose on this one. Yeah.
Pardon?
Somebody needs to mute themselves.
Yeah, somebody's.
Everyone that's on this call, can you please mute yourself until it's your item? Thank you.
So I'll start again. The decision rendered today for this application will be circulated within 15 days after the notice. There is a 20-day appeal period from the giving of the notice of decision in which any person or public body may appeal the decision or any condition imposed. If no appeal is received within 20 days of the giving of the notice, the provisional consent becomes final. The applicant has 1 year to meet the conditions imposed and submit the necessary documents for certification, or the consent will lapse and a new application will be required. Please leave the identification signs in place until the appeal period ends, after which they can be removed. If you would like to be notified of today's decision, please request a copy by contacting Nancy Pasto at npasto@algon.ca.
Thank you. We'll be getting them to say my name there instead.
Okay,
Next meeting.
so now we'll go to application E2721, which is a lot 21 and part lot 12 concession of TOB BF Municipality of Dutton Dunwich, municipal address 29420 Thames View Line. Take notice that an application has been made by James Simpson, 3473 Trillium Drive, Glencoe, for a consent pursuant to Section 53 of the Planning Act as amended to sever lands municipally known as 29420 Thames View Line, Municipality of Dutton Dunwich. The applicants propose to sever a parcel with a frontage of 60 meters, 196.85 feet along Thames View Line by a depth of 120 meters, 393.70 feet, and an area of 0.72 hectares, 1.78 acres, containing one residence surplus to the needs of the owner. The owners are retaining 141 hectares, 348.42 acres, proposed to remain in agricultural use. Now, I believe this is was deferred before, as a deferred application. Is that right, Nancy?
That is correct.
So do we have any more comments from the municipality of Dutton Dunwich? Ashleen?
After deferring this and relooking at it, the municipality of Dutton Dunwich recommends approval of this severance. County engineering has indicated that this site is not on a county road, therefore has no concerns. The Conservation Authority has also indicated they have no concerns or objections. Elgin County Planning Staff has taken a look at this and recommends approval subject to the following conditions. A digital copy of the draft and final deposited reference plan be provided to the County of Elgin. A solicitor undertaking to provide a copy of registered deed for the severed parcel once completed. and that the applicant shall provide an environmental impact study which shall confirm that the severance of the surplus farm dwelling as proposed in this application will have no negative impacts on the natural features or their ecological functions of the surrounding significant woodlands. The scope of the EIS shall be agreed to in advance by the applicant, the county, and the appropriate conservation authority if required. Furthermore, the conditions included by the municipality of Dutton Dunwich are as follows: that the adopted Dutton Dunwich official plan dated January 27th, 2021 is approved by the County of Elgin as it pertains to the land division policies. That a zoning bylaw amendment is in force and effect for the severed and retained parcels. That septic system review for the severed parcel has been completed. That municipal drain reapportionments have been completed. That a mutual drain agreement under Section 2 of the Drainage Act has been provided to provide a legal drainage outlet for the newly created residential lot. That an environmental impact assessment be conducted to the satisfaction of the municipality in consultation with the Conservation Authority. That 2 hard copies and 1 digital copy of the registered survey have been provided. That taxes are to be paid in full. That all Dutton Dunwich planning application fees set out in the fees bylaw be paid to the municipality. And finally, that the solicitor provides an undertaking that a copy of the registered deed for the severed parcel, once the transaction has occurred, will be provided to the municipality.
And I'd like to just apologize. I forgot to ask the applicants or the agents and interested parties who wish to speak to this application, please introduce themselves to the committee. Sorry, Joe.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. My name is Joe Hens, agent for the applicants. I also have Stuart Simpson and his daughter Kelly available as well. Mr. Chair, through you for council, I do have a comment with respect to the condition number 3 being the environmental impact study that is required. I understand the reasoning why this has made it into the conditions is that the severed parcel is located in a significant woodland, and the official plan provides that any development in a significant woodland requires an environmental impact study. Development is defined as to include lot creation. I think this leads to an absurd result. We've done this in the past for similar severances, and the environmental engineers we retain at significant cost to the applicant are often perplexed why they're doing an environmental impact study when there is no impact to really study. We're creating a boundary line, an invisible line on the ground where there's no impact to be assessed by the environmental engineer. I understand that the language of the official plan is what it is, but I do want to point out section F10.1 of the Elgin County official plan, which deals with interpretation. And the interpretation says that this plan is a statement of policy. It is intended as a guide to council and through to the committee through council. However, some flexibility in the interpretation may be permitted, provided that the general intent is maintained. I can't see how the general intent of the official plan is to lead to such an absurd result where an applicant has to obtain an environmental impact study where there is no impact to be studied. And so what I ask the committee to do is to exercise some discretion, consider whether it's necessary in this circumstances, and strike from the recommendation conditions the environmental impact study.
Thank you, Joe. Any comments from Nancy? Do you have on this?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. So this has been a consistent condition that we have added over multiple applications over the last few months. Although the severance would just be adding a line to the ground, this is a significant woodlot that is nearby. We don't know how significant for that matter. In fact, we have no information on it. I'm not sure how a permit was initially given for this house, to be completely honest. So if there was an EIS done as part of that, it would still be able to be used, for instance, to clear this condition, because I'm assuming that one would have been provided because it looks like there may have been trees that would have been taken down in order to construct this house. So as per the official plan, and as Mr. Hens pointed out, this is development, even if it is a line on the ground, and therefore some information in terms of the lot line and ensuring that this significant woodlot will not be impacted by this creation of a lot is generally needed. And in fact, this condition, if you were to look to strike this condition, it would have to be from both the county comments as well as Dutton Dunwich's comments.
Any comments from any of the members?
Mr. Chairman, the EIS has to be done just for the severed lot, correct? Not for the entire woodlot?
That's correct. And in fact, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
we have been requesting very scoped EISs to be done. And basically what it does is it determines just the edge, that there's no impact on this particular development. We're not looking at a wholesale review of the woodlot. We just want to ensure that the proposed lot line will not impact the rest of that woodland, for instance.
And to the representative, Mr. Hentz, the consultants you've used in the past, have they used scoped terms of reference, or have they drafted their own terms of reference?
They've drafted scope terms of reference, and then we would share them with staff at the county to approve it before they commence their work.
I think the majority of these recommendations are meant to protect rare and endangered species. And I would think with your experience and the experience you have with some of these botanists, they can tell almost right away if there are going to be any rare or significant species that are on this severed lot. So I would think it would be a very short exercise for them to do that. I'd be surprised if data on that entire woodlot does not already exist in somebody's file, because botanists are known to just go everywhere and prepare studies. So I think that with a very scope terms of reference for rare and endangered species and an opinion from a botanist that those will not be impacted would suffice for an EIS.
Any further comment from any other members?
Yes, Ian, I'd like to make a comment here.
Yes, Doug.
Originally, the verbiage here was an environmental impact assessment. Now we're using environmental impact study. Well, my past experience is an assessment is a very minor look at it. A study can become fairly in-depth.
Yes.
And I'm really wondering, why are we asking for the study now when we gave a building permit 6 years ago and we didn't have a concern about it? Like, it's, in my opinion, this is nothing but a point of overkill on this application.
Well, in a way, since this is in my municipality, I agree. That house has been there for 6 years and there was nothing ever mentioned 6 years ago or 7 years ago when the house was built for a study or anything, as far as I can find out. And I think in a way, I agree, it's a bit of overkill.
To you, Mr. Chair, I tend to agree with that as well. If I put myself in a position as landowner here, having lived there for 6 years and not going to be altering anything, I think the environmental impact study is overkill. Being the devil's advocate on the other side, maybe an impact assessment, if that's the right term, would be something that could be in the file to protect the landowner for future, if there's ever any disagreements come up, that, hey, we did an assessment at the time of the severance, and here's the proof that it's it's been approved as such.
Any further questions from members?
Yes, John Andrews. I
John?
agree also. I also agree that I think it's not warranted in the situation.
Okay. Any further members?
Yeah, Dennis here. I have sympathy with all those arguments, and that's why I'm trying to find a rationale for it's a small lot like this. A couple of hours from a botanist's time would be sufficient, I think, to render an opinion that there will be no significant environmental impacts. So it is part of the county OP, and if the committee feels strong enough, then we'd have to make a recommendation to the county OP to remove that particular section in the OP. But while it's still there, we've got to follow it. We've got to follow it through. So, hey, let's do something to try and reduce the amount of pain and suffering to the landowner, keep it as short, as quick and sweet as possible, And these guys are charging, I don't know, a couple $100 an hour. It shouldn't be that expensive to get that opinion done.
Any comments, Joe?
I mean, if you,
Mr. Chairman,
sorry, maybe Stuart, are you online? Did you get an environmental impact study done? Can you answer that? Has one been completed, one on the building permit?
There was no impact study done. We took it to the council before we built to get the permit to build. We talked to somebody from the ministry. They come out and looked at what we were going to do. They agreed with, was concerned that we were taking down a few trees in the corner of the bush, but when we walked the whole bush and the property, there's over 90 acres of river bank, bush, freshwater fish ponds on this property. It's been in the family since 1952. It's going to remain in the family, and we are very conservation conscious. And once they seen that, there was no issue. We look after things, and I know that when you're sitting on council, it's hard to establish what's going on out in the bush, but we dealt with this before we got the permit to build the house. I don't understand what a study is going to do to, we're very conscious of our surrounding here around this house and the lot, and we will remain to be conscious no matter what you guys do for us.
Sure, if I can just close off the comments on that from our end. I mean, it is an impact study, and there is no impact. I mean, we can provide a list of what kind of flora and fauna and animals are resident in that significant woodland, but that's not what the official plan requires either. What is the committee or county to do with armed with that information? The conversation I had with a recent severance we did where we needed one with the environmental engineer or consultant we retained was, it was pretty, it was a long conversation to try and get him just to get out and do an assessment when he said there's no impact to study. And his comment in that environmental impact study, which we provided and shared to the county, was next time wait for there's an impact to be studied, such as a building permit or some other construction or process that will actually impact the ecological functions. The plants and animals that are resident in that significant woodland are not going to realize that we've just drawn on a map a new lot line. That's my closing comments, and leave it to the committee for their decision.
Any comments, Nancy?
Yeah, I just have one thing to add. So when a severance occurs and a surplus farm dwelling, for instance, is created, there would be different zoning on that property. And very often the local municipality doesn't have a zone that recognizes the open space, for instance, or a setback from that open space. So determining that lot line is very important because there is the potential that somebody could put an addition on or potentially build another shed or something like that, that might actually start to encroach into that particular open space. And because we don't have the zoning, local zoning, and the local official plan that may recognize these types of features, that's why I think it's important to also note what is on the ground, where, as Dennis pointed out, where these significant features are, areas to avoid. And then that way, if there's any mitigation that needs to be included, whether it be through zoning or whether it be through some other mechanism potentially, we can note that. And that's really why we ask for these types of assessments or studies. In terms of the terminology between assessment and study, the official plan uses study or statement, I believe. I can't remember, but it's one of the two. There really isn't, the terms are interchangeable essentially. I've used assessment before as well because different municipalities call them different things. The scope of it is really the most important thing. Whether it's an assessment or a study, it really makes no difference. It's really about, when it comes down to is scoping that particular study or assessment.
Mr. Chairman, one last comment from me. To the landowners, did the Ministry of Natural Resources people put any of that in writing when they were out? Did they send you an email? Did they send you a letter? Do you have anything in paper?
No, they didn't. And we walked the property with whoever from the ministry. And at that point, there was nothing, he had no objections to what we were doing. We gave him a potential. The whole issue in building this was to create an excess dwelling for the purposes of our grandson. So we did this knowing that the potential boundary was going to be where it is. So, and going forward, the study should be done, in my opinion, when there is a building permit to add on to whatever could be the potential lot. You know, to me, I don't understand if we could build a house and create an excess dwelling back then, why do we need a study now when we're not changing anything in the moment other than reinforcing that boundary? But we told the ministry at the time, this is why we're doing it. It wasn't like we're building a house in a bush and the bush was always going to remain part of the lot. We did it to create what we're trying to do now. Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
may, again, sorry to follow up again. You may wish to contact M&R. Maybe that same person is still working there. And if not, maybe somebody else can come out. And I would think that if somebody from M&R just repeated and put in writing what you just said, that might constitute enough of a study for any future reference. But whenever, even in my experience dealing with any government official, even if they say there's nothing to worry about, get it in writing that there's nothing to worry about. Because bureaucrats, having been one for many years, they change their minds at the drop of a hat sometimes.
Can we pursue? Do you have anything more, Nancy, on this item?
No, I don't have anything further to add. So it's up to the committee now if they wish to approve this with modified conditions or approve as proposed.
I'll ask for a
I have
motion.
one last point here, Ian.
Yes, Stu?
I agree with Mr. Simpson. If we're building a new building, they should have an impact study. The township gave it about it. I also agree with Dennis that we have rules that it needs to be done. We need to go by them. But on the previous application we just looked at, we didn't look at our rules and they in the plan that close. We threw some of them right out the window. So I'm really confused on the thinking here.
Can we have a motion on the floor, please?
I'll put a motion that we approve the recommendations as written. Dennis?
Have a seconder? Anybody second that motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by John Selden. Any further questions? I'll ask the vote be called.
John Andrews,
No.
Ian Fleck,
Yes.
Dennis O'Grady,
Yes.
Rosemary Kennedy,
No.
John Selden,
Yes.
Jack Van Kasteren,
No.
Doug Aldred,
I'm gonna vote yes because I know what these people went through, but I still don't agree that they're doing an impact study.
Dude, just to clarify, the recommendation right now is approved with existing conditions. If this is defeated, it would go back and there potentially could be enough of a vote then to remove those conditions. So there could be a second recommendation. So I'll leave that to you.
You're asking if I want to add that recommendation?
If you wanted, for instance, you could recommend that you do not recommend, so you would vote no for this. And then if it is defeated, then an alternative recommendation could come forward with those conditions removed if you feel appropriate, and then vote on that.
Let's complete this vote, please.
Doug, is your answer going to be yes for this still?
Yes.
Okay. In that case, the motion carries.
Okay.
We have approved it as written, conditions as they appeared in the report.
Thank you, Chair and committee members.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Any other comments?
Ian, you have statement to read out?
Yes, I have the statement to read. The decision rendered today for this application will be circulated within 15 days after the notice. There is a 20-day appeal period from the giving of the notice of decision in which any person or public body may appeal the decision or any condition imposed. If no appeal is received within 20 days of the giving of the notice, the provisional consent becomes final. The applicant has 1 year to meet the conditions imposed and submits the necessary documents for certification, or the consent will lapse and a new application will be required. Please leave the identification signs in place until the appeal period ends, after which they can be removed. If you would like to be notified of today's decision, please request a copy by contacting Nancy Pasto at npasto@algon.ca. Thank you.
Can you go get Mr. Penn's?
Mr. Chairman, can I make a just a point for future discussion at a future meeting? I thought there were some good points raised by all parties on this one. And I know the official plan is going to be up or is being reviewed as it is. And perhaps we need to suggest to county that this whole section on environmental impact studies needs to be clarified, expanded, something, because of the confusion. We see what's happening here with this particular severance. We've run into it elsewhere, and it just needs to be clarified for a lot of different reasons. And that might be something that we could put on an agenda. We could draft a memo to the county and ask them to do that in their next OP review.
Nancy, excuse me, Nancy, does this have to come from this is partly in the municipality's official plan too?
That is correct. There is the conditions as well for the requirement for an EIS is so in the township's official plan. So the county is, however, going through their official plan review, certainly. And if LGC decided to make recommendations with respect to the application of the EIS policies for severances, then by all means, that could be a comment that comes forward and it could be reviewed through that process. Noting though that each local municipality also has their own conditions when it comes to the requirement for EISs.
Right, thank you. That just clarifies that. Thank you very much. We'll proceed with the next one, E37-21. Concession Gore West WD East 1/2 Lot 5, Municipality of West Elgin, municipal address 22034 Downey Line. Take notice that an application was made by Ron and Fran Downey, 21542 Hoskins Line, Rodney, for consent pursuant to Section 53 of the Planning Act 1990, as amended, to sever lands municipally known as 22034 Downey Line, Municipality of West Elgin. The applicants propose to sever a lot with a frontage of 45.72 meters, 150 feet along Downey Line, by a depth of 146.30 meters, 479.99 feet, an area of in hectares of 0.67, 1.65 acres, proposed to create one residential lot surplus to the farming operation. The owners are retaining 73.34 acres or 29.68 hectares to remain in agricultural use. If the applicants or agents and interested parties who wish to speak to this application, please introduce themselves to the committee. Thank you.
I'm Brian Pender of 22121 Downey Line, so I'm across the road, slightly to the east is where our residence is, but I got 51 acres there. And I'm actually not here to oppose or anything of that, what's going on with Downey. Jason and Jamie Downey, it's a young couple that are living there. It's Ron and Fran's boy. I've known them since they were little. So I'm just here really to get an education on the process of how these severances work. And who's talking on the computer here? I'm not sure. Is that?
Yep. Well, we will now proceed with this and then I'll ask you for your comments.
Okay.
Okay, we'll call on Ashleen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The municipality of West Elgin has reviewed this application and recommends approval subject to the provided conditions. County engineering has indicated they have no concerns. And the Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority has also indicated they have no objections or concerns. Elgin County Planning staff has taken a look at this application and recommends approval subject to the following conditions. A digital copy of the draft and final deposited reference plan be provided to the County of Elgin, and a solicitor undertaking to provide a copy of registered deed for the severed parcel once completed. Additionally, the conditions included from the municipality of West Elgin are that the applicant meet all the requirements, financial and otherwise, of the municipality to the satisfaction and clearance of the municipality. That the applicant provides a description of the lands to be severed, which can be registered in the land registry office to the satisfaction and clearance of the municipality. That the applicant's solicitor provides an undertaking to the municipality to provide a copy of the registered deed for the severed parcel once the transaction has occurred to the municipality. That the applicant successfully apply to the municipality for a zoning bylaw amendment for the severed parcel and retained parcel, and having such rezoning of the zoning bylaw come into full force and effect pursuant to the Planning Act to the satisfaction and clearance of the municipality. The applicant have a drainage reapportionment completed pursuant to the Drainage Act to the satisfaction and clearance of the municipality. That the applicant have a septic system assessment be completed by a qualified individual on the proposed severed parcel to ensure that the lands are suitable for a privately owned and operated septic system. That prior to final approval of the county is advised in writing by the municipality how the above noted conditions have been satisfied. And finally, that all conditions noted above shall be fulfilled within 1 year of the notice of decision so that the County of Elgin is authorized to issue the certificate of consent.
Any comments, Nancy?
No, I have no comments on this one.
Any comments from any of the members?
Jesse and I'd like just make a short comment on this. This is a fairly straightforward application. It is a little on the larger size at 1.65 acres, but that's mainly due to the setback of the road creates a little bit larger front yard area, which adds up to the 1.65 acres.
Any other members' comments?
Chairman Dennis here. What's up with that metal clad shed? Is it just like a garage, or what is that?
Just a small garage, yes.
Yeah, okay.
No other comments?
Through Chairman John Andrews, I'll move.
Okay, John, thank you. Moved by John,
I'll second.
seconded by Rosemary. And I just asked if the age or any comments from the member that was, or the neighbor?
Say again?
Any comments?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
All looks good.
Thank you. I'd ask, if there are no other comments, I'd ask for the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. John Andrews,
Yes.
Ian Fleck,
Yes.
Dennis O'Grady,
Yes.
Rosemary Kennedy,
Yes.
John Selden,
Yes.
Jack Van Castren,
Yes.
Hugh Aldred.
Yes.
All right, motion carries.
Okay, the decision rendered today for this application will be circulated within 15 days after the notice. There's a 20-day appeal period from the giving of the notice of decision, in which any person or public body may appeal the decision or any condition imposed. If no appeal is received within 20 days of the giving of the notice, the provisional consent becomes final. The applicant has 1 year to meet the conditions imposed and submit the necessary documents for certification, or the consent will lapse and a new application will be required. Please leave the identification signs in place until the appeal period ends, after which they can be removed. If you would like to be notified of today's decision, please request a copy by contacting Nancy Pasto at npasto@algon.ca. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pender.
Can I get your last name?
Pender,
P-E-N.
Pinder. I was hoping I could talk to somebody about actually what I'm here. Really interested about are these ones that went through. There are 4 of them on the different farm too. So I don't know, this is the process by which I can ask those questions. You guys, I'm sure.
No, sir, those, just so you know, those applications were already approved. So I believe we've spoken on the phone before with respect to those severance.
I read something, there's some appeal process, it's a $450 fee or something.
That's correct. And that would have been sent out last month. So that's already, that decision's already in force. So there is no appeal period anymore for that. That the decision is in force.
And numerous questions about, you know, our
You can, yep, you can.
plan and whatnot like that.
Okay, so you can give me a call again if you'd like, and we can discuss the applications. But we can do it outside of this meeting because we still have other things on the agenda.
So that's fine, Mayor.
Okay, so give me a call.
Hoping for an education.
Thanks.
Okay, the next one then is for now, E3821. And that is an application has been made by Kelly Elizabeth Butler, 5733 Boxell Road, Port Stanley, for consent pursuant to Section 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended to sever lands municipally known as 5733 Boxell Road, Municipality of Southwold. The applicant proposed to sever a lot with a frontage of 94.95 meters, 311.51 feet along Boxell Road by a depth of 450 meters, 1476.38 feet, and an area of 4.02 hectares, 9.93 acres, proposed to be added to the adjoining property at 35893 Scotch Line, owned by Goodhue Farms. The owners are retaining 0.59 hectares, 1.45 acres to remain in residential use. Ashleen, could you comment, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair, would you like to address members of the public first?
Sorry, applicants or agents and interested parties who wish to speak to this application, please introduce themselves to the committee.
Yes, good morning. It's Dave Rowe. I'm the agent and for both this application and the next application. The 2 applications are intertwined, I guess is the best way to describe it. So yeah, I can add my comments at the appropriate time. Thanks.
Thank you, David. Sorry.
And do I speak?
Okay.
Kelly Butler? Okay.
Pardon? Somebody else
I
here?
yeah, it's Kelly Butler. I'm just letting you know that I'm here as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Kelly. Okay, Ashleen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Council of the Township of Southold recommends approval of this application, subject to the provided conditions. The Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority has indicated they have no concerns, and similarly, County Engineering has indicated they have no concerns. Planning staff has taken a look at this, and although this application meets the policies of the county and local official plans, county staff has recommended a deferral of this application. The county staff has recommended a deferral of application E3921, which is related to this site. And the applicant may also wish to defer consideration of this file until such time E3921 has been resolved. Staff therefore recommend a deferral of this application until the outcome of E3921 is known. However, should the Land Division Committee recommend approval of this application, the county requests the following conditions. A digital copy of the draft and final deposited reference plan be provided to the County of Elgin. Solicitor undertaking to provide a copy of registered deed for the severed parcel once completed. That the severed lands are deeded in the same name and interest as the abutting lot at 35893 Scotch Line, owned by Goodhue Farms, and that Section 53 of the Planning Act applies to any future consents affecting the same lands. Southold has recommended approval on the provided conditions. The applicant meet all requirements, financial and otherwise, of the municipality to the satisfaction and clearance of the municipality. That the applicant provides a description of the lands to be severed, which can be registered in the land registry office. That the applicant's solicitor ensures that the severed parcel be deeded as a lot addition only to adjacent lands to the west in accordance with the Planning Act. That the applicant's solicitor ensures any mortgage on the property be discharged from any land being severed, and for any lands being added to a lot with the mortgage, that any mortgage shall be extended unto the additional lands. That the applicant solicitor provides an undertaking to the municipality to provide a copy of the registered deed for the severed parcel. That the applicant solicitor provides an undertaking to the municipality to provide, oh, that one looks like it's already been included. So we may have to amend that in our motion just to remove the duplicated condition. That the applicant successfully apply to the municipality for a zoning bylaw amendment to rezone the retained and severed parcels, and having such rezoning of the bylaw come into full force and effect pursuant to the Planning Act. That the applicant shall have a septic system review or assessment completed by a qualified individual on the proposed retained parcel to ensure the lands are suitable for a privately owned and operated septic system, and install any and all upgrades that may be required. That the applicant provide a mutual drain agreement pursuant to the Drainage Act. That the applicant shall have a private water well assessment completed on the retained parcel to ensure the drinking water source is safe for human consumption. That prior to final approval of the county is advised in writing by the municipality how the above conditions have been satisfied. That the conditions of applications E3821 and E3921 be fulfilled in conjunction with one another. And finally, that all conditions noted above shall be fulfilled within 1 year of the notice of decision.
Any comments on this one, Nancy?
Yes, I just want to clarify the deferrals for both this one as well as E39. So the application for this one is to sever off the X number of acres in order to convey to the adjacent landowner. But then they consequently in E39, it is to add lands that are in farming operation on the adjacent lands into this, what would be a surplus farm dwelling. So I'm just, nothing has been provided from the applicant or the agent with respect to why that needs to occur. I'm not sure why the applicant just cannot sever a reduced amount, for instance, and retain consequently those lands rather than remove other lands that are in agricultural production and add them into these lands in the subsequent application. I'm just trying to understand what the necessity for something like that is when really the owner currently owns a lot of these lands. They could reduce the amount that's being given to the neighbor and retain a little bit larger of a parcel if that's the case. So I'm hoping the applicant or the agent can clarify this for myself and committee.
Are you there, Mr. Rowe?
Yes, I am. And I think Mrs. Butler will also speak to this. First of all, we don't view this as a surplus farm house severance. We view this really as a boundary adjustment between two adjoining agricultural parcels. And then secondly, Mrs. Butler will speak to this, there is a reason why they would like the additional land added to their parcel from the Goodhues, and I'll let Mrs. Butler speak to that part right now.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes,
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 Kevin.
go ahead.
If you take a look at this parcel here, take a look at where our house is and where the other burner shop is on this. For us, what we would like to do when Good Hughes first bought that farm behind us, okay? Which I think the fire number you guys have wrong. But Ben and Jim talked, and it makes more sense for us to have the other side. If I retire, when I retire, if I would like to get a horse, couple cows, whatever, you're gonna expect me to take from the right side of the property, walk across the front of my property over to a paddock. Whereas we're gonna actually put in more acreage to agricultural. We aren't gonna change the agricultural. There's no rezoning of any property because A, we're in a hamlet, it can't be. So this way here, if we wanted to add stalls on to the side, then it's much easier for me to walk out and open a stall door and let the horse run wild. Or the cows, the chickens, whatever I choose to do. There's no chance. We're more to go to farms and just simply ignoring it. This is simply a land boundary change. And that's what it is. And I just can't understand why it's so difficult.
Thank you for your comments. Nancy, do you have any further comments to that?
No, not through you, Mr. Chair. I don't really have any comments. I just a couple of things. When you add how a horse or cow in the future, I don't know what that does to an MDS consideration. I admittedly don't know very much about MDS. So I'm hopeful that it doesn't really impact anything, but the issue is that the application as it stands didn't really explain the necessity to remove and then add additional lands. I'm sorry I called it a surplus farm dwelling. I recognize it is not. It is a boundary adjustment. However, it is two boundary adjustments that ultimately result in additional lands being removed from a farming production, and that was my issue basically. So the committee has the information in front of them and they can decide the appropriate course or recommendation.
Any comments from Mr. Rowe?
Yes. If the application were actually to just reduce the amount of land going to the Good Hughes, then it would strictly have been strictly a boundary adjustment. In this case, it just makes more sense from the Butler's position, and I understand why they have an existing shop down there on the south end of their property. So they simply want to add some additional land so that they do have room for a paddock there. Had the shop been built on the north side of the lot, then we wouldn't be going through this. It just simply makes sense on the ground. I guess that's the best way I can put it. And MDS wouldn't apply here in that there are no other surrounding houses anywhere near this. And the Butler property is zoned agricultural, I think small parcel agriculture, something like that. So they would be entitled to have a horse and some a cow and a chicken, that type of thing. Anyway, so I just think if you look at the application from on the ground perspective, it does make sense from the applicant's owner's position.
Any comments from the members of the committee?
Through your chairman, it's John Andrews, and I visited the site a couple of times actually. And I guess to me, it is a boundary adjustment. That's number one. Secondly, we are putting more acres into agriculture if this both go through, which I thought this committee is always for that. And secondly, the property that they would like to retain from the Good Use is not prime agriculture ground. It would be better to have a horse, or their grandkids could ride an ATV out there or whatever. I guess I don't have a problem with it. And I think it's got approval from the township, so I don't know why staff is stumbling with it.
Any comments from any other members?
Yes, Ian, I'd like my comment here.
Yes,
I guess looking at it, we're gaining almost a total net gain of farmland of almost 6 3/4 acres when you look at the two numbers. And that little piece is about 350 feet square or something, if I remember right. It's such a small property. It's very difficult to turn big farm machinery around. You get a 100-foot boom sprayer in there and you got to turn around the corner that small. It's almost impossible for farm equipment today to work a little corner that small efficiently, where if they switch the two properties, the Goodhue then have a good long straight strip of land on the other side that's much more farmable property. So looking at it overall, I don't see a problem with this myself.
any other comments from members?
Mr.
Through
Chairman,
you,
Dennis
Mr.
here.
Chair. Okay, go ahead, Dennis.
I'll
Go
let Jack
ahead.
go. Go ahead, Jack. I'll let Jack go.
Go ahead, Jack.
Well, I was just gonna say that I found this one very interesting, and I think the two are combined. And I'm going to recommend, or I'm going to move that this one be accepted with the conditions. And in so doing so, I would expect that the next one be approved as well.
Do we have a second to that motion?
Andrews?
Andrews, any further comments from any members?
So Chairman, just I
Yes,
just want
Dennis.
a little bit of clarification. So the parcel to the north, the bigger parcel, parcel A, does it what's the zoning going to be on it if we approve the severance?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll have to check. 1 second.
Yeah, I assume that it would be put in the same zone as the Goodhue's property to the west. I would expect that. Probably an A2 zone, something like that.
1 second here.
I believe I read that somewhere, that it's going to be joined to the existing farm operation and it will be zoned the same way.
Zoned accordingly. That's right.
That's right. I agree with that.
Okay, and then if we approve parcel C, what will it be zoned as? And I'm assuming that that whole property will be joined as one parcel. It won't stay as two separate parcels. Is that part of the condition that it become one parcel of land?
Yes, it would be.
Yes.
Yes.
So there's a condition that says specifically that. Then is there?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, there should be.
And then what will it be zoned as?
I believe it would be zoned as the same as the existing Butler property is, which is, I think, a special agricultural zone. I don't have the, perhaps Nancy has the information.
No, I just need to, through you, Mr. Chair, I need to look this up actually. So it's 5733 Boxall. 1 second.
Yes, please, just take your time, Nancy.
Yeah, I believe it was all in the written documentation that Goodhue Land's newly amalgamated parcel would need to be rezoned on the Butler Land severed parcel from A1, A3 to coincide with the existing zoning on the Goodhue Land. I believe it was all documented in there.
He's right.
And my last question is, how close are the services to this road, to Boxall Road? I know that the sewage treatment plant is a stone throw away. Are the water lines that close as well? Does anybody know?
This is Butler.
Pardon?
There's water lines there.
There's water lines on that road, I believe.
Yes, we've got our, like you're talking the municipal water.
Yes.
Yes, we paid for that the day or when they installed it. It's paid in full. It's in the notes as well.
Okay. Thank you.
So through you, Mr. Chair, just, I believe that our comments for this application from the county, I don't recall if there was a condition related to the merging of the properties for both.
As long as that condition is in there,
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with the resolution. If that's not specific in our resolution, as long as we make it so that it's clear in our resolution.
Our condition
For
number
both, for
3,
both properties.
It is in ours.
and then the townships included it as well.
Okay, so it's in both of them? Okay, perfect. So I've just confirmed that we have that condition with respect to the merging on title. So for E38, it would be the merging of the surplus, the excess farmlands to the other property and then vice versa for E39.
Thank you.
One more clarification, if I could, through you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Jack.
When I was reading what I just read, that the A1 and A3 and whatnot, I found it says the Butler Lands retained parcel would need to be rezoned from A1 to A1-XX.
Yes.
I'm not sure what that is. I wonder if Nancy could clarify that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's a special provision basically to the zone, so it'd be a special zone that they would need to apply for. So it would be tailor-made for that property.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
that zone would only apply, like it'll end up having a number depending on the numbers in the actual zoning bylaw. So it'll be like A117 and it would only apply to this property.
Okay, and it would be the entire property with the buildings on it plus the amalgamated piece.
Yes, that's correct. I believe that's what their conditions state.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any further questions? I'll call for the vote then.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. John Andrews,
Yes.
Ian Fleck,
Yes.
Dennis O'Grady,
Yes.
Rosemary Kennedy,
Yes.
John Selden,
Yes.
Jack Van Kasteren,
Yes.
Doug Aldred,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, the decision rendered today for this application will be circulated within 15 days after the notice. There is a 20-day appeal period from the giving of the notice of decision in which any person or public body may appeal the decision or any condition imposed. If no appeal is received within 20 days of the giving of the notice, the provisional consent becomes final. The applicant has 1 year to meet the conditions imposed and submit the necessary documents for certification, or the consent will lapse and a new application will be required. Please leave the identification signs in place until the appeal period ends, after which they can be removed. If you would like to be notified of today's decision, please request a copy by contacting Nancy Pasto at npasto@algon.ca. Thank you. So we'll now proceed with application E3921. Take notice an application has been made by Goodhue Farms, Port Stanley, 36507 Scotch Line, Port Stanley, for consent pursuant to Section 53 of the Planning Act 1990 to amend severed lands municipally known as 35893 Scotch Line, Municipality of Southwold. The applicants propose to sever a lot with a frontage of 143.43 meters, 470.57 feet along Boxall Road by a depth of 94.5 meters, 310.04 feet, and an area of 1.3 hectares, 3.21 acres, proposed to be added to the adjacent property at 5733 Box Hill Road, owned by Kelly Elizabeth Butler. The owners are retaining 32.88 hectares, 81.24 acres to remain in agricultural use. I'll ask for any comments from Ashleen, please. And first of all, applicants, agents, and interested parties who wish to speak to this application, please introduce themselves.
Yes, Dave Rowe here. I'm the agent for the applicant. Thank you.
Okay,
And
Ashleen.
also Jim Goodhue, I'm here too.
Okay, thank you. So I'll ask Ashleen to proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as indicated previously, this application was submitted with application E3821. It was further indicated that the severed land, once conveyed to the adjacent property owner, being Kelly Butler, would be used to construct an addition to the existing garage on Boxall Road to accommodate potential future livestock and a small pasture. The Township of Southold has no issues with this and recommends approval subject to their provided conditions. The Conservation Authority has no concerns, and similarly, County Engineering has no concerns.
Any comments?
Elgin County Planning staff have taken a look at this application and have recommended deferral of this application until the applicants provide more information on why the existing lands cannot accommodate the proposed expansion for the housing of the livestock. However, should the Land Division Committee recommend approval of this application, the county requests the following conditions be included. A digital copy of the draft and final deposited reference plan be provided to the County of Elgin. Solicitor undertaking to provide a copy of registered deed for the severed parcel once completed. That the severed lands are deeded in the same name and interest as the abutting lot at 5733 Boxall Road, owned by Kelly Butler, and that Section 50 subsection 3 of the Planning Act applies to any future consent affecting the same lands. Additionally, it is recommended that the following conditions from the Township of Southold be included as conditions for consent if granted. That the applicant meet all the requirements, financial and otherwise, of the municipality. That the applicant provides a description of the lands to be severed, which can be registered in the Land Registry Office. That the applicant solicitor ensures that the severed parcel be deeded as a lot addition only to adjacent lands to the north in accordance with the Planning Act. That the applicant solicitor ensures that any mortgage on the property be discharged from any land being severed or for any lands to be added to a lot with the mortgage, that any mortgage shall be extended onto the additional lands. That the applicant solicitor provides an undertaking to the municipality to provide a copy of the registered deed for the severed parcel once the transaction has occurred. That the applicant solicitor provides an undertaking to the municipality to provide a copy of the registered property identification number consolidation once the consolidation has occurred. That the applicant successfully applied to the municipality for a zoning bylaw amendment to rezone the severed parcel and having such rezoning of the zoning bylaw come into full force and effect pursuant to the Planning Act. That the applicant provide a mutual drain agreement pursuant to the Drainage Act. Prior to the final approval of the county is advised in writing by the municipality how the above noted conditions have been satisfied. That the conditions of applications E3821 and E3921 be fulfilled in conjunction with each other. And finally, that all conditions noted above shall be fulfilled within 1 year of the notice of decision prior to issuing a certificate of consent.
Thank you, Ashleen.
Sure.
Any further comments from any of the members?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, John? Can't hear you, John.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
You there, John?
I'm here.
Nope.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Don't hear you, John.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm sorry about that. Anyway, David, Mr. Rowe, is an MDS requested or required for this? I had a couple of notes about for both 38 and 39 about an MDS, but I don't see any information about it.
There was an MDS done on the bigger parcel owned by Goodhue. However, and it was submitted, but it doesn't have an impact on this particular application.
138.
Yeah, it affects the retained lands owned by the Goodhues. There are no livestock barns on the Goodhue property, but there is one north of the Goodhue property. However, the proposed severance is well outside that area, so there's really no impact from the livestock barn, which is located north of the Goodhue's retained parcel.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any further questions?
Andrews, I'll move.
Moved by John Andrews, the second. Seconder.
O'Grady?
Seconded by O'Grady. Any further questions? If not, I ask for the vote.
John Andrews,
Yes.
Ian Fleck,
Yes.
Dennis O'Grady, Dennis O'Grady,
Sorry, yes.
Rosemary Kennedy,
Yes.
John Selden, Jack Van Kasteren,
Yes.
Hugh Aldred,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. The decision rendered today for this application will be circulated within 15 days after the notice. There is a 20-day appeal period from the giving of the notice of decision in which any person or public body may appeal the decision or any condition imposed. If no appeal is received within 20 days of the giving of the notice, the provisional consent becomes final. The applicant has 1 year to meet the conditions imposed and submit the necessary documents for the certification, or the consent will lapse and a new application will be required. Please leave the identification signs in place until the appeal period ends, after which they can be removed. If you would like to be notified of today's decision, please request a copy by contacting Nancy Pasto at npasto@algon.ca. Thank you. And we'll now move on to E4021. Take notice an application as made by Wagler Homes Incorporated, 54857 Talbot Line, RR1 Eden, Ontario, for a consent pursuant to Section 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended to severed lands municipally known as 92 Myrtle Street, Town of Aylmer. The applicant proposes to sever a lot with a frontage of 10.08 meters, 33.07 feet along Myrtle Street by a depth of 40.28 meters, 132.15 feet, and an area of 406.1 square meters, 0.10 acres, and retain a lot of 406.3 square meters, 0.10 acres, each proposed to be used for existing residential use. 1 unit of a semi-detached dwelling for each that's severed and retained lots. And any applicants or agents and interested parties who wish to speak to this application, please introduce themselves to the committee. I'll now ask Ashleen to proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The town of Elmer supports this application. County engineering has indicated they have no concerns, and similarly, Catfish Creek Conservation Authority also has no concerns. One public comment was received via email from Dan Reed, a neighbor of the subject site, in opposition of the proposed application. County planning staff took a look at this application and recommends approval subject to the following conditions. A digital copy of the draft and final deposited reference plan be provided to the county, and solicitor undertaking to provide a copy of registered deed for the severed parcel once completed. You should have received the following correspondence in your agenda packages. The email I received from Dan Reed states, I am a neighbor to the development at 92 Myrtle Street, Elmer, and would be interested in making a verbal presentation in opposition to the request for severance application number E4021 and E4121. I can be available to join by video at 10:05 a.m. on Wednesday, June 23rd. Please send video conference details to this email. Many thanks, Dan Reed.
Do we have Dan Reed with us?
I think he was on earlier. I saw a pop-up on my screen,
Okay.
but I don't.
Any comments? Nancy?
No, I have no comments on this application.
Any comments from the members?
I move. Andrews.
Moved by John Andrews,
I'll second.
second by John Selden. I'll call the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. John Andrews,
Yes.
Ian Fleck,
Yes.
Dennis O'Grady,
Yes.
Rosemary Kennedy,
Yes.
John Selden,
Yes.
Jack Van Kasteren,
Yes.
Sue Aldred.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. The decision rendered today for this application will be circulated within 15 days after the notice. There is a 20-day appeal period from the giving of the notice of decision in which any person or public body may appeal the decision or any condition imposed. If no appeal is received within 20 days of the giving of the notice, the provisional consent becomes final. The applicant has 1 year to meet the conditions imposed and submit the necessary documents for certification, or the consent will lapse and new application will be required. Please leave the identification signs in place until the appeal period ends, after which they can be removed. If you would like to be notified of today's decision, please request a copy by contacting Nancy Pasto at npasto@algon.ca. We'll now proceed with application number E4121. Take notice that an application has been made by Wagler Homes, 54857 Talbot Line, RR1 Eden, for consent pursuant to Section 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended to sever lands municipally known as 92 Myrtle Street, Town of Aylmer. The applicant proposes to sever a lot with a frontage of 10.05 meters, 32.97 feet along Myrtle Street by a depth of 40.2 meters, 131.89 feet, and an area of 405 square meters, 0.10 acres, and retain a lot of 406.4 square meters, 0.10 acres, each proposed to be used for existing residential use, 1 unit of a semi-detached dwelling for each of the severed and retained lots. Applicants or agents for this and interested parties who wish to speak to this application, please introduce yourselves to the committee. I'll now ask Ashleen to speak to this, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The town of Elmer supports this application. County engineering has no concerns, nor does the Conservation Authority. Similarly to the last application, we received 1 public comment from Dan Reed in opposition of the proposed application. County planning staff has reviewed this application and recommends approval subject to the following conditions. A digital copy of the draft and final deposited reference plan be provided to the County of Elgin, and solicitor undertaking to provide a copy of registered deed for the severed parcel once completed.
Do you have any comments, Nancy?
No, I do not.
Any comments from the members?
Through you, Mr. Chair, for
Yes.
Nancy. I see on the chat that Dan Reed was communicating with Nancy. Do you know if he ever did connect with the telephone or no?
I had, through you, Mr. Chair, we sent him that and let him know, and then he said, okay, thanks, and that was the last of the correspondence, so.
Okay.
Unfortunately, as we know, technology is not always perfect. Apparently he could not hear, so unfortunately, there's not much we can do from that perspective.
Well, then based on that and the previous motion that carried, I'm gonna move that this motion be carried as well.
Moved by Jack Van Castro, seconder.
I'll second, Mr. Chair.
Seconded by Rosemary Kennedy. Any further comments?
I cut out for a second. I didn't hear the motion. Could I hear it before I vote, please?
Yes. The
I'll
motion,
move that it be carried. I'll move this motion forward based on the conditions.
Thank you.
and it was seconded by Rosemary. Well, now call the vote.
John Andrews,
Yes.
Ian Fleck,
Yes.
Dennis O'Grady,
Yes.
Rosemary Kennedy,
Yes.
John Selden,
Yes.
Jack Van Castren,
Yes.
Doug Aldred.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Ashleen. The decision rendered today for this application will be circulated within 15 days after the notice. There is a 20-day appeal period from the giving of the notice of decision, in which any person or public body may appeal the decision or any condition imposed. If no appeal is received within 20 days of the giving of the notice, the provisional consent becomes final. The applicant has 1 year to meet the conditions imposed and submit the necessary documents for the certification, or the consent will lapse and a new application will be required. Please leave the identification signs in place until the appeal period ends, after which they can be removed. If you would like to be notified of today's decision, please request a copy by contacting Nancy Pasto at npasto@algon.ca. We will now proceed with application E4221. Take notice that an application has been made by Connie Blyde, 255 Hill Street, Port Stanley, for consent pursuant to Section 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended to sever lands municipally known as 255 Hill Street, Municipality of Central Elgin. The applicant proposes to sever a lot with a frontage of 15.24 meters, 50 feet along Larry Street by a depth of 32.31 meters, 106 feet, and an area of 492.4 square meters, 0.12 acres for future residential use. The owners are retaining 1,536.34 square meters, 0.3 acres, proposed to remain in existing residential use. Applicants or agents and interested parties who wish to speak to this application, please introduce themselves to the committee at this time.
Hi, it's Eric Weishus. I'm the abutting property on Larry Street there.
Yes, thank you.
Well, Michael
yeah.
Breitling speaking. I'm the solicitor for the applicant.
Thank you.
Connie Blyde speaking. Connie Blythe speaking. I am the applicant.
Thank you. So we will now proceed with Ashleen's comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The municipality of Central Elgin recommends approval of this file subject to the provided conditions. County engineering has indicated the subject site is not on a county road. Kettle Creek Conservation Authority has indicated they have no concerns. We did receive some correspondence from the public on this one. One comment was received via phone call from the Wishes. I'm sorry if I just mispronounced your name, from Rachel and Eric, who live at 370 Larry Street, the lands directly to the north of the subject lands. They voiced concerns related to privacy and the proposed future use of the lands impacting the use and enjoyment of their own property. They are also concerned that existing mature trees will need to be removed to construct a dwelling on the proposed lot. Since writing this report, they have also submitted comments in writing to me, which should have been included in your agenda packages. And additionally, they are in attendance today. An additional comment was received from another neighbor, Rick Fitzell, who lives adjacent to the subject lands, and he also opposes the severance application. County Planning has reviewed this application and recommends approval subject to the following conditions. A digital copy of the draft and final deposited reference plan be provided to the County of Elgin, and solicitor undertaking to provide a copy of registered deed for the severed parcel once completed. The municipality of Central Elgin also recommends the following conditions be included. Confirmation that municipal services for both the severed and retained lots have been completed to the satisfaction of the Director of Asset Management / Development Services. Confirmation that the existing shed on the severed lot has been removed or relocated to the satisfaction of the chief building official. The applicant enters into an agreement with the municipality of Central Elgin to address administrative, technical, and financial matter relative to the development of the subject lands. The payment of cash in lieu of the dedication of 5% of the land for parkland purposes. A copy of the reference plan be provided to the municipality of Central Elgin, and a drainage reassessment be done if necessary at the owner's expense.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we did, like I say, receive a little bit of public correspondence on this one. One comment was received via email from Rick Fitzell, a neighbor of the property. His objections are just that he does not want this and did not provide any further reasoning, just that he was in opposition to this application. And you should have been included on getting this circulated to yourselves through the agenda package, but the other public comment received is from Louise's, and they are writing as residents of Larry Street to express our views regarding the application requested for 255 Hill Street under application number E4221. The request to sever a lot for future residential use is undesirable, unpleasant, and in our opinion will have a negative impact on our neighborhood. As the owners of the abutting property, our objections include loss of privacy, views, spacing between houses, and the feeling of openness which may result from the mass, height, and bulk of any future development. Currently, there are several very mature trees in the proposed area to be severed, and all of them would have to be removed to develop the lot. This will erase much of our privacy. We moved into our home at 370 Larry Street less than a year ago, and one of the main reasons we chose this house is because of the large trees that surround our lot and the distance between houses on all sides. Our view and sightlines are pleasant and green. Consider that a primary factor often considered by people motivated to purchase in a particular neighborhood like ours is the degree of spaciousness, sunlight, and privacy that was dictated by the zoning bylaws that existed when the neighborhood was developed. People like ourselves often pay a higher purchase price and higher annual taxes for the enjoyment of these qualities and feel we should be entitled to the protection from changes such as the request being made through this application. We moved out of the city away from a smaller lot with houses and the hospital that were in close proximity in order to gain more privacy. So to have these trees removed and a house built in their place would be extremely undesirable from our perspective. As well, because of the close proximity of construction for a future residence, we have serious concerns about traffic, access, noise, and drainage. Both resident adults work from home 100% of the time and the other at 20%, and excessive construction noise is incompatible with our work, which requires a pleasant, quiet environment. Again, this was another reason we chose this house when we moved to Port Stanley. In regards to drainage, unfortunately, in August of 2020, 2 weeks after moving in, we discovered water issues in our basement on the side of the house that abuts the proposed lot. After spending thousands of dollars to fix the issues, we are concerned that other issues would arise during construction happening so close to our property line. We understand that a grading and drainage plan would be submitted for any future residents on the proposed lot, but the foundations of older homes are particularly vulnerable to water leakage, and any problems created by new development would have a significant negative impact on our lives. We do not believe this type of development is appropriate for Larry Street. While our street was extended a few years ago for residential development and there is new development on Hill Street, we believe that the proposed lot would be incompatible with the established built form and character of the neighborhood, and that erodes the aesthetics of the streetscape. Almost every single home on the original streets of Larry, Beamish, and Emery have wide, large private lots. Severing the property at 255 Hill Street and developing for residential use goes against the existing pattern of established development. We believe that this application of severance is not compatible with the existing original lots of the neighborhood with respect to size and continuity of the street, and is sensitive to issues such as privacy and parking. Finally, approving this application would impact our quality of living in Port Stanley.
Thank you, Ashleen.
Sure.
Any comments from any of the members?
Chairman, I'd like to hear from some of the people
Yes,
who have joined us before I make any comments.
Any comments from the people objecting?
This is Eric. I just pretty much what's in the letter, I guess. Really my primary concern is privacy and drainage and stuff like that. Having another property or house rather built, obviously it's going to have to be very close to the property line, being 50 feet wide. But yeah, all the other concerns were read out there.
Any other comments from from the owner or the lawyer?
Mr. Chair, this is Michael Breitling, the solicitor for the owner. I read the email and I saw a previous voicemail summary, and they haven't articulated, in my mind, a legal reason for the objection. You know, the applicant obviously is a private landowner who her application, it's been shown, is consistent with official plan and zoning. It's not changing the zoning. It's still going to be residential on this severed parcel. And with respect to trees and things like that, all of those are obviously part of her private property. So if they're, you know, suggesting that a neighbor can hamstring what she can do on her own property, I think many people would object to that idea.
Any comment from anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, just a couple of questions. We may not have the answers. Does Central Elgin have any sort of, I'll call it urban tree strategy? Are we aware of any, Nancy?
Mr. Chair, I'm not aware of anything with respect to any particular policies in their official plan that speak to trees or tree preservation.
Second question, is it within the purview of our committee to either request or suggest that trees be planted on that street in numbers of the same numbers that trees have been torn down to help replace the lost trees? And I'm not talking seedlings, I'm talking landscape stock, 6, 7, 10-foot trees. Have we ever done that? And I believe we can, but have we ever done that in the past? Anybody remember?
I would suggest that that's a municipality, local municipalities concerned. Any other comment on that?
I agree with you, Chairman.
Me too.
Any further comments on this?
My only last comment is there seems to be a need for some people to get together and have a chat about this. You know, it's again not within our mandate to mandate that sort of thing, but just as some advice that in order to quell some of the ideas that people have out there, it may be worthwhile to sit down, talk about fencing, talk about grading and drainage plans, talk about noise, talk about the different things so that everybody can live in this area and not be mad at each other. So it's very easy to create a severance. That's the policy of Central Elgin is intensification. And but there are ways to do that and at least open up lines of communication with all the neighbors to see if there are ways that everybody can live together with this particular development. So,
And as the chairman, I'd like to just say this isn't only Central, this is all areas that are going through the same thing. And I think it's up to the municipalities to work with the people and put conditions in. It's not ours, it's Land Division Committee. It's up to the local municipality to put the rules in place. Any other comments? Jack?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that, Mr. Chair. We can only look to see if it meets and is consistent with the provincial policy statement and the County of Elgin official plan, which it is. I can certainly sympathize with the neighbors to the north. However, we can't rule on that particular issue. Further to Dennis's comments, there are with dialogue options that anyone, once that lot is created, anyone can offer to purchase that lot and leave it vacant, leave the trees where they are, et cetera, et cetera. There's other opportunities available. But I think we can only vote on what's presented to us and whether it meets all the criteria. So I'm going to move that this motion be carried, or move that this application be approved. Sorry.
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you, Jack. Any seconder?
I'll second it. O'Grady.
Seconded by Dennis O'Grady. Any further comments? I'll call the vote.
John Andrews,
Yes.
Ian Fleck,
Yes.
Dennis O'Grady, Rosemary Kennedy, John Selden,
Yes, I didn't hear Rose.
Hello?
You there, John?
You there, John?
I heard a yes, but that was me. Yeah.
Jack Van Kasteren,
Yes.
Duke Aldred,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you. The decision rendered today for this application will be circulated within 15 days after the notice. There is a 20-day appeal period from the giving of the notice of decision, in which any person or public body may appeal the decision or any condition imposed. If no appeal is received within 20 days of the giving of the notice, the provisional consent becomes final. The applicant has 1 year to meet the conditions imposed and submit the necessary documents for certification, or the consent will lapse and a new application will be required. Please leave the identification signs in place until the appeal period ends, after which they can be removed. If you would like to be notified of today's decision, please request a copy by contacting Nancy Pasto at npasto@elgin.ca. Thank you. And the next application is E4321. Take notice that an application has been made by Michael James Robinson, 25597 Stalker Line, West Lorne, for consent pursuant to Section 53 of the Planning Act 1990, as amended to sever lands municipally known as 25597 Stalker Line, Municipality of West Elgin. The applicant proposes to sever a lot with a frontage of 55.6 meters, 182.41 feet along Stalker Line by a depth of 109.17 meters, 358.17 feet, and an area of 0.60 hectares, 1.49 acres, proposed to create one residential lot surplus to the farming operation. The owners are retaining 38.91 hectares, 96.15 acres to remain in agricultural use. Is there any of the applicants or the agent or an agent and interested parties who wish to speak to this application, please introduce themselves to the committee.
Dan McKillop, agent for the property.
Thank you.
Angela Kammer, an adjoining lot at E23.
Donna Lunn, Elgin Federation of Agriculture.
Yes, thank you. And Angela, where did your address on Stalker Line?
25756 Argyle Line. We are the adjoining lot.
Okay, thank you. We'll now ask Ashleen to proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The municipality of West Elgin recommends approval of this application subject to the provided conditions. County engineering supports this application subject to the provided conditions regarding road widening and entrance permits. Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority has no objections to this application. Shortly after writing this report, but after it had been circulated to you guys, a comment was received from Donna Lunn. I think rather than read that one out to you, because it's quite lengthy, I may get her to summarize her thoughts after I'm done with the conditions. So the Elgin County Planning has reviewed this application and recommends approval subject to the following conditions. A digital copy of the draft and final deposited reference plan be provided to the County of Elgin. Solicitor undertaking to provide a copy of registered deed for the severed parcel once completed. That the owner dedicate lands along the frontage of the severed and retained lots / parcels up to 15 meters from the center line of construction of Stalker Line, County Road 9 to the County of Elgin for the purposes of road widening if the right of way is not already to that width to the satisfaction of the county engineer, all costs to be borne by the owner. And that if necessary, an entrance permit be obtained from Elgin County for the entrance to the severed parcel. All costs associated with this shall be borne by the owner. Additionally, the conditions provided from the municipality of West Elgin are as follows. That the applicant meet all requirements, financial and otherwise, of the municipality. That the applicant provides a description of the lands to be severed, which can be registered in the land registry office. That the applicant's solicitor provides an undertaking to the municipality to provide a copy of the registered deed for the severed parcel once the transaction has occurred to the municipality. That the applicant successfully apply to the municipality for a zoning bylaw amendment for the severed parcel and retained parcel, and having such rezoning of the zoning bylaw come into full force and effect pursuant to the Planning Act. That the applicant have the water well on the retained parcel abandoned and decommissioned by a licensed well contractor. That the applicant have the 2 existing barns and outhouse demolished with all materials removed so that the lands have the capability of being tiled with the farmlands to the satisfaction and clearance of the municipality. That the applicant have a septic system assessment completed by a qualified individual on the proposed severed parcel to ensure that the lands are suitable for a privately owned and operated septic system. That the applicant remove the existing septic system and install a new septic system by a qualified contractor on the severed parcel. That the applicant's solicitor provide an undertaking to the municipality to provide a copy of the registered deed for the retained parcel prior to the transfer of the severed parcel by transferring retained parcel to the purchasing farmer as part of farm consolidation. once the transaction has occurred to the municipality. Prior to final approval of the county is advised in writing by the municipality how the above noted conditions have been satisfied, that all conditions noted above shall be fulfilled within 1 year of notice of decision, so that the County of Elgin is authorized to issue a certificate of consent pursuant to the Planning Act. And then, as stated before, Donna Lunn with the Agricultural Federation is present and can go over her comments for you.
Yes, I'd like Donna to proceed, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much for this today. I'm still not used to all the Zoom meetings, hopefully in person soon. The Elgin Federation is the largest general farm organization in the county with well over 1,000 members. And I represent the Land Use Committee on the EFA. We do receive the applications for severance from the municipalities and from Land Division Committee, and we don't usually respond until we have some concerns. So we are commenting today on this application because it does indicate some concerns that we do have. One is that usually, or it used to be that we would receive a little more completeness to the application. And we feel that it was the application that we did receive was lacking in details, so that the map that we received was a blank map and all it indicated was lines of severance. There was nothing noted on the map itself. So when I did inquire for more complete drawings, we did get the aerial, which still is very difficult to read. So previously, applications noted details with measurements including water sources, septic beds, trees, neighboring barns, etc. And the size of the property requested being 1.49 acres, we really cannot be determined as appropriate or not when we don't have the water and the septic is not indicated. And as noted with the municipality of West Elgin 6.2.9E, minimizing the loss of productive farmland, we need to know if the size is appropriate or not. And the provincial policy statement 2.3.4.1, that a new lot will be limited to a minimum size needed to accommodate the use and appropriate sewage and water services. So we really can't comment. And we do note that severances are tending to become a little bit larger than they used to be. Secondly, this application for severance, just lost my place here, is really, well, we do not consider it to be a surplus farm dwelling for the current owner. We consider it more a retirement lot, which really is not permitted in the PPS. The provincial policy statement, again, I won't read it all, 2.3.1 or 2.3.4, about lot creation in prime agricultural areas being discouraged and putting conditions on. And one of those conditions certainly is that the creation of new lots shall not be permitted except for those conditions, those exceptions of farm consolidation. We do not consider this a surplus farm dwelling when a landowner wishes to sell farm property. Indeed, the studies from OMAFRA have indicated that retirement lots only stay in the hands of retiring people for 2 to 3 years, hence why they changed that in the 1990s to the present PPS. Municipality of West Elgin's official plan, 6.2.9 surplus farm dwellings, again states that the creation of the lot is considered surplus as a result of farm consolidation, being, and I quote, the acquisition of additional farm parcels to be operated as one farm operation. This indeed indicates that the reason for a surplus farm dwelling is that by acquiring additional farm property that you will be operating as a farm operation, then that home may become a surplus dwelling for yourself. So indeed, in this instance, the buyer or the entity that would be perhaps acquiring the farmland should be the one to be applying for the possibility of the surplus farm dwelling severances. So we do not agree with the translation that some are indicating that this would be a farm surplus dwelling on behalf of the current landowner. So we do oppose the severance.
Thank you, Donna. And comments from any other person at this time? Is there another lady there like to?
Mr. Chair, my name is Angela Kimmert, and
Yes.
Donna Lynn has basically said more or less what I was coming here to say. We're an adjoining landowner and also a member of the Elgin Federation of Farmers. And my husband and I oppose this severance and how it is worded. We feel that it doesn't comply with the provincial policy statements as a surplus farming operation. It clearly indicates in Mr. Robbins' application that he is not consolidating his farming operations, and as noted in it, that the remaining hectares are going to be moving onto another operation, and that it's not a farming consolidation. And we question how this meets under the provincial policy statement and the Elgin official plan. And I guess pose that question back to how does this comply and that this application is moving forward. And I'd like to submit my opposition to it at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Angela. Any other comments?
Yes, at appropriate time, I'd like to address both the ladies.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. And good morning, Donna. It's been a while since we talked. I respect your comments and your understanding. And yes, this application was, when it started out, a surplus farm dwelling in the eyes of, first of all, the first planner, Heather, who's off of maternity leave, and the second planner who is with us now, Brian Pierce. We did that in pre-consultation, so we knew that we could move forward. Excuse me, move forward. It did meet the policies that were required. So I'm at a loss as to where that wasn't a surplus, but we'll move to the next part. Is in the middle of that, or after we started, the farm was sold, and that was the intention all along. And nowhere can I find, and I respect your position, Donna, but nowhere can I find in the OFA handbook that prevents people from selling while applications are going on. It has to do with land use. And we know we're meeting, or based on all the past, we've met 1.4 acres is going to meet that standard. And it's staying in agricultural land with the new buyer. So then we had the conversation, and Angela, you can reply to that, at the West Elgin Council, is the reason we move forward is, as opposed to going to the next, deferring this, or because that was a recommendation by Duncan. I think Dougal, you had a conversation with him, and I respect that. Other than it's the cumbersome system we're in, and to move forward, what you're saying is if the new people who buy it, then they can take it as a surplus farm dwelling, and the same thing's going to happen. So West Elgin Council looked at that and said, yes, that isn't the way we've done it in the past, but it doesn't change the end result. We're going to have a surplus farm dwelling, and we're going to have a farm continue to be farmed. And so we agree with that comment from West Elgin, and I don't know what else I can say to alleviate the concern. As far as the comment about there wasn't water, well, those comments are on the application, and we've been asked by Land Division to bring a sketch of the property being severed, and if in future we need a drawing of the whole land so people get a perspective, or and I know at some point Ms. Pisato said we could take an aerial view. I respect that, but that wasn't done at this time. But when you look at the view and you see that it's still farmland, I'm just not sure what we could have done different other than to slow the process down. Now, I have found out that there is precedent in land division that this has been done before. And I'm sure in an appeal, I'd be able to find that. But I have it in good authority that this sort of thing has been done before. And I'm not sure what we can do as far as satisfying those comments from Donna and Angela.
Any comments from the members of the committee?
Ian, if you don't mind, I can clarify a few things that were mentioned through the comments.
Yes, Nancy.
Thank you. First and foremost, the mapping that was sent out. Unfortunately, we normally do include the building layer that we normally include in the consents. I want to caution everyone, though, that we've, and this has come up before at committee, that building layer is not necessarily always correct. Number one, because we have aerials that are aerial photography is only taken every 5 years. So we only update that layer every 5 years. So sometimes that doesn't even reflect necessarily what's on the ground. So in this particular case, there was an error, and when we were coming up with the maps, and we did not include the parcel, the actual building fabric accidentally, basically. The second question about the information being provided, I asked that in the future, if EFA is interested in any of these applications, we can send them the entire package that is received for anything, which include, in this particular case, a detailed drawing of the severed parcel, which shows the building setbacks, the gravel drive, the hydro. It even shows the cultivation line, as well as some of the barns that are being left outside of the surplus farm dwelling. So I just asked that in the future, if EFA is interested in any of these applications, we do circulate to you, but obviously not the full package. But if interested, then all you need to do is contact us and we can provide you with as much information as your committee might need to make decisions. And thirdly, and finally, with respect to the application, we had discussed this, in fact, at the beginning of this committee meeting. Right now, our application form only has a space for owner and for agent. And that has been, unfortunately, the way the form has been done for many, many years. And we did discuss changing that to ensure that an applicant can also be added to the application form, which may cover off then on who's applying based on, a particular severance, like in this case. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the policies of the PPS, as well as the local and county official plan, talk about farm consolidation in generalities. They don't talk about who owns what and who can make an application. It really is, for instance, lot creation and lot adjustment in the PPS is a residence surplus to a farming operation, which one can say is going to be the case when the owner, the agricultural owner would own the property. That would be determined then that is a residence surplus to their farming operation. So I guess at the end of the day, it's incumbent on what it will be, whatever the land division committee ultimately wants to do. But basically, with respect to the current policies in the local and the county official plan and the PPS, there isn't really that differentiation, I think, between who owns the property ultimately at the end of the day. So those are my comments.
Comments from the members?
Yes, Ian, I got a comments here.
Yes.
I guess.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Yes, Ian, you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, it's water's getting pretty muddy here after hearing the EFA's position. I wonder if we've been making any of the right decisions on these. But anyway, I have to agree with the mapping comment. When I went and looked at this property, it showed no existing septic system, nowhere where there was going to be a proposed septic system. It showed one well that has to be abandoned. There's at least one more there that's not showed, but maybe two. So for me to go and look at this property and think if it would, like, I'm not an engineer, but it's even physically possible for a septic system to go there when I have no idea where the proposed one might be or where the existing one is. It made it kind of an incomplete application for me as a land division member to go and look at. And then I notice in here, it says that Mr. Robinson made the application. Now the farm has been sold. So maybe you can answer. Who's making the application now, Nancy? Mr. Robinson or Ag Invest?
No, it continues to be Mr. Robinson.
Okay. Because that was one concern from members of the council, that they had made the decision with Mr. Robinson being the owner, and if it had changed ownership. But all right, that's the situation there then. So I guess the main thing I had was with the mapping. The mapping was very vague for me to try and figure out what was going on.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just want to point out as well, again, the application, with respect to what was submitted by the applicant, there is a drawing that was provided, and it shows the house and the location of the septic tank. It was further down in the application form. I agree that it was not on the actual severance drawing that was done by Kim Husted, but it was provided as part of the septic review, which was required. And it shows that it is directly behind the house by 3 meters. So, I mean, it's like I said, it is not on the severance sketch drawing, which again, I apologize, but it has been provided as part of that application package.
But it wasn't part of the package that we as land committee members seen, right?
No, that's incorrect. It would have been circulated to you in the original application package that we circulate to the committee. I guess it would have been a couple of weeks ago.
Just one thing I'd like to clarify, that was not on my app, any of my stuff where the well is or the septic is.
No,
Correct.
did not.
I agree with that.
Okay, I apologize. I had assumed that 2 weeks ago when we circulated our application forms that information would have been included in the package.
It's not included.
Okay,
It was
so,
only
so if I can make that comment then to the Land Division Committee, if you notice that these things seem to be missing, and if there is questions about, where these things are, it's very helpful for us to know that we haven't provided the information to you because we do have the information. So I do apologize, but in the future, if you could let us know that these things seem to be missing early on, then we can get them corrected and ensure that you have all the information that's available.
On the original package you sent us, there was 3 pages referring to this application.
Yeah.
That was all that was there.
Okay.
Mr.
Again.
Chair, if I could speak to it.
Go ahead, Mr. McKillop.
Regarding the septic system, I believe the original application, we knew the weeping bed went out into the field. And so they knew that there had to be a new septic system installed. And so with that, again, I apologize for not using or trying to apply common sense, is that when he met with the licensed installer, they've decided that they need a new tank and everything. And there's more than enough room in the front of the property to do that inside the system. I realize that's not on the map, but that wasn't determined at the time. All that we determined, but that's satisfied under the West Elgin comments, is that a new septic system approval has to be in place. And so it's addressed whether we do or not, this can't go through until we have an appropriate septic system. Thank you.
One comment as chair, just as chairman, I have one comment. It's nice to know where, and most places give us where the septic tank is going to be installed, because that affects also the size of the lot being severed. And that's quite concern, is where a new septic system is going to be. And normally the local municipalities give us that. Any other comments from any members? John Selden?
Just to you to, with respect to Mr. If by selling the property, has he lost standing for making the application?
Yes. I would think so.
Yes.
So if I can speak to that, please.
Go ahead, Mr. McKillop.
Yes, the property has not been sold. So you have to understand it's conditioned on the severance. And I had this discussion with Land Division, like which way should we go? Because the applicant, we could have turned this around a month ago,
Yes.
but at the end of the day, we looked at it and said, Mr. Robinson still owns this property. So it has not changed ownership until the severance is done, then things happen. As far as, and that's a real estate issue. I'm not trying to bore you. So just to clarify, Mr. Robinson owns this property.
Any comments from any other members?
Mr.
First
Chair,
of all, any member of the
comment.
committee, then I'll get you, Donna.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I've just got a question, more of a general question. This township doesn't have any requirements for owning other property in that township or anything like that, as some of the townships do. They don't have any bylaw like that, do they?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct. As far as I know, West Elgin does not have a condition that requires that lands within West Elgin be owned in order to allow for these types of applications.
Okay, thanks. And my second question is, based on the information, their nearest properties in Stratfordville, if I remember that correctly. How does this company operate? Do they buy that and lease it out? Is that how they operate?
Yes.
Okay.
Any further comments?
Can I speak to that, Mr. Chair?
One more comment, and then I want the members to speak.
Okay, you go ahead. I can comment after.
Any comments from the members?
Ian,
Yes?
and I got something here I want to say.
Yes? Doug?
I'm a little confused that Mr. Robinson doesn't own the property when there was a for sale sign on it, and 2 days later, there was a sign that said for lease by Ag Invest. Can you explain that one?
I can qualify that with, or if it's okay, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so they have I don't know what you want to call it, a side deal, an agreement in place that Ag Invest wanted to get the crop in the field. And so the owner, Mr. Robinson, and Ag Invest have made a deal so that they could lease the property, and they have their own deal, and I'm not privy to that. But that's how that happened. It's not, they didn't do it because they owned it. They did it because of a deal made with Mr. Robinson.
No, I'd like to ask. Go ahead,
They have
Doug.
leased it to some farmer then to plant the crop.
I believe so. I seen some John Deere equipment in there, so I assume it's, yes.
Because Ag Invest does not farm themselves. They're just an investment company.
Yes. Any other comments from any of the members, please?
Mr. Chair,
Yes?
I'm sorry to, I don't mean to. What strikes me is that we're in a gray area to approving an application for an individual.
John, could I interrupt? John, speak right into the microphone because you're cutting in and out. No,
Can't hear you, John.
Not better?
we can get you now.
All right. In any case.
Can't hear you.
Let me back off. I'm fine.
Any other members have any comment? Donna, you had a comment?
Yes, I feel that when an applicant comes forward through the process, that is what we measure it on, and it feels very muddy with the applicant process in this application. I understand that it could be the similar lands we'd be talking about between applications, whether it be the retiring landowner or the new investment company. I sympathize with timing, but the process is the process, and I believe that it should be much more transparent, and I oppose this application. If Ag Invest indeed buys the property, they are invited to put an application in to sever the surplus farm dwelling.
Jack?
I know it gets muddy and we've had a number of these in the past before. But we can't overlook the fact that we've dealt with these issues, that the sale is conditional on the severance being approved. And this is a classic case of one of those. If we don't approve this today, then as Donna just mentioned, Ag Invest is free to bring a proposal, purchase the property, bring a proposal back to Land Division to sever off a surplus farm dwelling. So all we're doing today, in my opinion, is looking at the information before us. It is consistent with the OPS, the PPS, the county. The fact that, you know, all the issues that were raised about wells and septic system and everything like that is in the conditions. I believe we don't have any basis to vote against this. I think it meets all the requirements, and we have had these kinds of issues in the past where there's a discrepancy over who the applicant is, et cetera, but this one is similar to all of those.
Any other comments from members?
Yes,
Ian.
Andrews.
Yes, John?
And I kind of agree. There's a lot of muddy waters, but with the information that the Robson is still the owner, and I don't see how we can't move it forward. I hear everything, but I think the rules are written. So I guess I'll move that we proceed.
Could I have one more question?
Go ahead, Donna.
Sorry, Dan, do you know if Mr. Robinson has a farm business registration number?
Mr. Robinson does not have a farm business registration number, and I did look into that with OFA policy and severance, like over the Land Division, and there's no requirement for that. As much as I understand where you're coming from, and I support our Elgin Federation as well as the Ontario Federation, but that's I have to think with my head, not with my heart, and therefore the decision looking at this is he didn't have it. I just need to, before I can, Mr. Chair, the comment that was made, the company that's buying it owns, without looking at it real quick, about 140 acres at West Elgin. So they are landowners in West Elgin. If that was a concern for some reason, I don't know what it is, because provincially you just have to own the land. And that was confirmed by the engineer. Sorry, I apologize. By the planner from West Elgin. He confirmed that in their meeting as well. And that's why their decision was moved forward for the same reason. We met all of the conditions at the time.
Okay, there's one comment I have on it. If you say you're gonna put the septic tank in the front yard and the barns are all coming down, why can't we make that less than 1.49 acres? Because that's just all wasteland behind that house. Grass is never cut.
So I want to comment on that if I could. First of all, were some sheds back there, and we went with the minimal amount. And I respect what you're saying. So if that's the case, if that was the reason, and you wanted to bring it from 1.49 to 1.2, and you're trying to say 0.2, sure, I see that, but we're within the standards set by both municipality and the county. And I didn't say that the septic tank was going to go behind the house. I don't know where the septic tank's going. I know the weeping bed is going to be at the front of the house. But with today's provisions, the septic tank could be at the back of the house and the weeping bed at the front, because they can do that in today's technology. So we can't look at a parcel and just say, this is the way it is. So if that qualifies your answer, Mr. Fleck.
Any other comment from, yes, Jack?
Just to that point, Ian, Mr. Chair, the proposed in the county official plan comments. It is stated in there that the proposed severed lot is larger than typically permitted. The larger lot size is to accommodate the existing pool deck on the east side of the property and the servicing septic location on the west side of the dwelling. However, the proposed severed lot is actually smaller than the existing lawn area surrounding the dwelling, and any further attempts to reduce the area would result in an irregularly shaped lot. So somebody has obviously looked at that to make those comments.
Donna, go ahead. This is the last comment.
Sorry, I just want to clarify about the farm business registration number, and it has nothing to do with what farm organization we belong to, but certainly it indicates whether the applicant may be a farmer or not, whether he has other existing farmlands. And however this interpretation has been, and I think we will put forward in the official plan our input, because somebody is very loosely interpreting the acquisitions of additional farm parcels to be operated as a farm operation in order to be a farm consolidation and get a surplus farm dwelling. If a landowner does not have additional farm parcels, probably indicated because he does not have an FBR number, therefore no farm income, really cannot be thought about going forward with farm parcels as a farm operation and then having his property surplused. It really does indicate that we should have the applicant who is the farmer coming forward, and I believe it should have been Ag Invest buying the property and coming forward. And we will be taking a close look at this going forward as well.
Mr. Chair, I need to address that if I could.
No, that's the comments, please. Any further comments from members before we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move the motion. O'Grady.
Moved by O'Grady, seconder.
Definitely second it, Mr. Chair.
Rosemary, yes, go ahead. Put the vote, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. John Andrews? Ian Fleck?
No.
Dennis O'Grady?
Yes.
Rosemary Kennedy?
Yes.
Don Selden?
Yes.
Jack Van Castrum?
Yes.
Sue Galdred?
No.
Motion carries.
The decision rendered today for this application will be circulated within 15 days after the notice. There is a 20-day appeal period from the giving of the notice of decision in which any person or public body may appeal the decision or any condition imposed. If no appeal is received within 20 days of the giving of the notice, the provisional consent becomes final. The applicant has 1 year to meet the conditions imposed and submit the necessary documents for certification, or the consent will lapse and a new application will be required. Please leave the identification signs in place until the appeal period ends, after which they can be removed. If you would like to be notified of today's decision, please request a copy by contacting Nancy Pasto at npasto@algon.ca. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Our next application is E4421.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the E44 as well as E45, E46, and E47 are all very similar. I'm not sure if you would like to read those maybe up front, so that way we can deal with them as a whole. Might be the easiest way, I think.
I will do that then. I'll read each one and then we'll ask for comments, right?
That's correct, yes.
So E44-21. Take notice an application was made by Brent Douglas Allen, 10247 Talbotville Road, St. Thomas, for consent pursuant to section 53 of the Planning Act as amended to sever lands municipally known as 10247 Talbotville Gore Road, Township of Southwold. The applicant proposes to sever a lot with a revised frontage of 15.24 meters, 50 feet along Talbotville Gore Road by a revised depth of 30.48 meters, 100 feet, and a revised area of 540.2 meters squared, 66 feet square for future residential use. The owner is retaining a revised area of 16,842.2 meters square, which is 181,287.93 feet squared, proposed to remain an existing vacant lot, structures to be removed. Now I will read the next one, which is E 45.21. Application E 45-21. The applicant proposes to sever a lot with a revised frontage of 15.24 meters, 50 feet along Talbotville Gore Road by a revised depth of 30.48 meters, 100 feet, and revised area of 464.1 meters squared, 4,995.53 feet squared for future residential use. The owner is retaining a revised area of 16,332.3 meters squared, which is 175,799.41 feet squared, proposed remaining an existing vacant lot, structures to be removed. Application number 46, E46-21. The applicant proposes to sever a lot with a revised frontage of 15.24 meters, 50 feet along Talbotville Gore Road by a revised depth of 30.49 meters, 100.03 feet, and a revised area of 464.1 meters squared, 4,995.53 feet squared for future residential use. The owner is retaining a revised area of 15,822.4 meters squared, 170,310.89 feet squared, proposed to remain an existing vacant lot, structures to be removed. Take notice an application is made by Brent Douglas Allen, 10247 Talbotville Gore Road, St. Thomas, for a consent pursuant to section 53 of the Planning Act as amended to sever lands municipally known as 10247 Talbotville Gore Road, Township of Southwold. The applicant proposes to sever a lot with a revised frontage of 15.24 meters, 50 feet along Talbotville Gore Road by a revised depth of 30.5 meters, 100.06 feet, and revised area of 464.1 meters squared, 4,995.53 feet squared for future residential use. The owner is retaining a revised area of 15,312.5 meters squared, 164,822 0.37 feet squared, proposed to remain an existing vacant lot, structures to be removed. Do we have any applicants or agents and interested parties who wish to speak to this application? Please introduce themselves to the committee.
My name is Jackie Jensky, and I am a resident of Talbotville.
Thank you very much. Okay,
My
I'll
name
now
is
ask-
my
go
name is
ahead.
Dave Arn. My name is Dave Arnett, and I'm also a resident of Talbotville.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'll now ask Ashleen to read the applications, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If it is okay with you guys, I will read these all as one, as all the comments are the same for each of the four conditions included.
Thank you.
So the Council of the Township of Southold recommends approval of the files numbered E44 through E47-21, subject to the provided conditions. Similarly, county engineering has indicated that these applications are not on a county road. At the time of writing this report, there were no public comments submitted. Elgin County Planning has reviewed the applications and recommends approval subject to the following conditions. A digital copy of the draft and final deposited reference plan to be provided to the County of Elgin, and solicitor undertaking to provide a copy of registered deed for the severed parcel once completed. Additionally, the following conditions from the Township of Southold should be included for all four of the applications. That the applicant meet all the requirements, financial and otherwise, of the municipality. That the applicant provides a description of the lands to be severed, which can be registered in the land registry office. That the applicant solicitor provides an undertaking to the municipality to provide a copy of the registered deed for the severed parcel once the transaction has occurred to the municipality. That the applicant obtain demolition permits prior to removal of all buildings and structures, existing dwellings, including septic, decommissioning and removal, 2 sheds, a sea can, and 2 coveralls, and all existing services to be disconnected prior to the demolition to the satisfaction and clearance of the municipality. That the applicant shall complete an investigation into obtaining legal drainage outlet using the Drainage Act by a qualified individual and complete any Drainage Act process that may be required. The applicant shall complete a master drainage study along with lot grading and drainage plans with drainage outlets for the proposed 4 lots to be severed and the retained parcel. That the applicant shall complete a site servicing report along with associated site servicing drawings for the proposed 4 lots to be severed and retained parcel. The applicant shall enter into a consent agreement with the municipality for the proposed 4 lots to be severed and the retained parcel, addressing all municipal interests and associated fees and charges, including and not limited to water, wastewater, drainage, cash in lieu of parkland, development charges, road permits, amongst other matters, to the satisfaction and clearance of the municipality. Prior to final approval of the county is advised in writing by the municipality how the above noted conditions have been satisfied. That the conditions of applications E44-21, E45-21, E46-21, and E47-21 be fulfilled in conjunction with one another. And finally, that all conditions noted above shall be fulfilled within 1 year of notice of decision, so that Elgin County is authorized to issue a certificate of consent pursuant to the Planning Act.
Any comments from Nancy, the planner?
I have no comments on this.
Any comments from the agents or on these applications? Or anybody want to speak to these applications?
I would like to at least make my voice heard. I believe that this situation is kind of a situation where it's a sheep in wolves' clothes, as I'll say. There's a reason why he's only looking for 4 severance applications based on if you get a 5th, it requires you to have a subdivision plan or have a plan in place. The entire property, even included the vacant land that is supposedly being retained. The entire property has been sold with the intention of having a condominium complex built on that vacant land. So your decision today, whether the information's in front of you or not, I think is an attempt at an end around of the rules. So the 4 severance lots that are being proposed are tiny lots in the very front of a subdivision, or on Talbotville Gore. The streets or houses that are around them all have frontages of 200-300 feet. So these are tiny little lots. And then with the intention of the back lot or vacant lot being sold already, seems to me a dirty pool.
Well, thank you for your comment. Any other comments?
Yes, this is Jackie Jensky. I live on Shady Lane Crescent in Talbotville, and I actually just have a couple of questions, and I'm not actually sure if the developer is on the phone or not, but I just wondered if we did have confirmation of the future plans for that retained land, because the statements that were made in what you read, John, says that structures to be removed. So all of the structures on that retained land are to be removed. Is that correct?
That's what it says. Is that not right, Ashley?
That is correct. They will be removed.
So I'm assuming then that because this has been purchased by a developer, that the plan is to actually build a development, a subdivision development in that area. Does anyone have any knowledge of the next steps for that remaining retained land?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do not have any knowledge of any future applications for the retained lands. However, I would like to point out that Alder Caranci is on this call, and he is a potential purchaser. I'm sorry, he is the developer for the 4 lots along Talbotville Gore. I'm not sure if he's on the call and can hear us as of yet, but perhaps he can speak to future plans of the retained lands.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I was listening. I couldn't get on the other computer here. So yes, thanks for looking at this application. I kind of take a little exception to the first comment that was made. There's nothing being hidden here. We've met all the requirements for these 4 lots. It's to expedite the necessity of homes in the area, especially with the announcements that have come in the area. We have met with the planner. We've met with I think we've met with the county on this too. They're privy to what we were doing. We're not doing anything out of school that is not permitted under provincial policy. This basically is just to expedite lots that will become available to potential purchasers for the community. The lot sizes, I think, are dictated by the policy of the township, and we meet those requirements. So to say that there's lots that are 200 or 300 feet in the area, I think is basically irrelevant. Everyone can sever their lots down to meet those requirements also. I think those lots were put in place at the time when there was no services there. This area now is fully serviced with sewer, water, storms, and everything. The requirement for lot sizes is, basically down to that size now, which has been in place for several years in that community. As far as the retained parcel, we have showed our proposal on the retained parcel. As planners and developers, everyone knows that it takes a bit of time to develop a piece of land. We have already taken into account that, and like I said, this was the easiest way to move forward on those lots, to basically showcase what we'll be doing in the area. I'm hoping that answered some of the questions.
Yeah, that did. Thank you, Mr. Caranci. I had a question, and I'm hoping maybe you can answer this one too. For tree protection, and you know us, you've met with my husband and I, and we have a concern on tree preservation in the area. So there are some of the trees that are very close to the sidewalk that are the property of the township of Southold. They actually moved the sidewalk around those trees. Those trees, and there are about 30 mature trees on this property that is being severed. those trees at the front, do we know what's happening with those? Are there plans that all of the trees are going to be removed from the property?
Thanks for the question, Jackie, and I appreciate that. Trees that are not on our property, we can't deal with. We have to deal with the town if necessary to move one or two. We will do everything in our power to go around them for driveway access. The trees at the back, we've been diligently working to basically design around the trees. I think I was on and off watching the meeting, and there was some comment on any policies on tree removal or what have you. I think, when we did meet, I was very clear that, those trees are valuable to a developer, and for us just to go in and cut them down is crazy. They're worth, they're worth money to anything that's being built. But the lots in those trees in the front, no, I mean, we've done an overlay on the full potential of what's going on with that property. And we are going to try and save as many trees, which by the looks of the plan that's being proposed or going to be proposed at some point, we've taken that all into consideration. I mean, we have no intentions of going in and clear cutting that property there.
Good. Yes, thank you. That's good to know. I mean, and in full support of you, you have been very, very, very good with us with keeping the trees on your side of the property that back onto your Talbotville Meadows subdivision, and we appreciate that. The only other thing I question is if in the future this is going to be an actual subdivision, is there an opportunity to turn the lots around so that the front of them is actually facing into the subdivision? Because you're going to build roads in there, right? At some point.
I'd like to say,
sorry, go ahead.
excuse me, I'd like to say one thing. That subdivision approval will come, I believe, Nancy, that's right. It'll come through the municipality first.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's actually an application made to the county, and then ultimately it goes to Southwold for their conditions, and they will host the public meeting on the county's behalf.
Yes. Just to clear it, it'll be through the municipality once the county sends the paperwork to them for the public meetings.
Sure.
When we present the plan, that's correct.
Yes.
As far as the housing being turned around, we looked at that. The thing is I think completing the streetscape in that area through our designers and what have you, we've come to the conclusion, and that's why these lots were facing the road, basically ease of servicing, and basically just to complete that whole streetscape there, because I don't think anyone wants to see backyards backing onto the road. I think that wouldn't be a good thing. Or they'll have a big fence backing onto the road. That is awful looking also. So that was taken into consideration. And as far as, I mean, I guess I can talk a bit about the other things.
I'd like to say that we have some items to do, and I think this is an item between you and the neighbors.
Thank you. Yep.
And I appreciate your comments, but I think and the municipality who will be approving along with the county, that subdivision.
That's correct. And thank you. And just if I may, Jackie, my phone is always open, and I have no problem with discussing anything.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. You've answered everything. I didn't have anything else. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So are we ready for a motion?
Mr. Chair, if I may, before you do that, I forgot to mention that we had a public comment submitted via email after I wrote the report.
Sorry, Ashley.
No worries. I just forgot to mention it earlier, but the comments included in that email are reflective of exactly what we've heard here from the members of the public. There is nothing new in there. He is simply concerned that this is a way to bypass the bigger process here for the rest of the site, and he's a little worried about privacy and drainage concerns on his own lot. Thank you.
Thank you. So do we have a mover and a seconder?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
May I just make one quick technical comment? The areas stated for 4421 and 4521 are change between 464 and 520 on the 3 different locations that they're noted in the application. And just so you know, there's an inconsistency on those 2. The other 2 they're consistent at 464 in the 3 locations where they're noted.
Okay, through you, Mr. Chair, we will note that the applicant did slightly revise their application, which is what necessitated through the agenda package that you have, the revised notices. There was a slight discrepancy, I believe, and so some of those areas did change. So there may not be exactly as per the application forms that were submitted, but they were amended after the fact.
So should we then, by that way, have a motion for all one at a time? Have 4 motions?
If I may speak for a minute.
Yes.
That the applicant, there was amendment only because there was some discrepancy in the sizing. What we did is actually turn the lots perpendicular to the road so they wouldn't be on an angle. And I think I see the mistake here, but if you calculate 15.24 meters by 30.48, every one should come out to, aside from the first one, every one should come out to 464.1 and 464.1. Lot 1 would be 540.2. And I think that's, Nancy, that's where the discrepancy is,
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken.
All right, so we'll make sure that the decision reflects that.
Yes. Okay, thanks, Nancy. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I've just got one quick question of the developer, if I may.
Yes.
Is this the end of the single lot severances, or are we going to see any more?
We can't do any more. We've
Anymore.
done exactly under the provincial policies, which allows for 4
Oh, I know.
severances plus
No,
retainment.
for it this time, but will you at some point in the future do any more single lot severances?
No,
Well,
the next plan will be actually will be a vacant land condo, and that will go through the county.
Okay. Any,
Can we move all 4 or we got to do them separate?
I think you should do them separately, Mr. Chair.
I think we should too. That's what I'm asking. We have one on each one separately.
I'll do 4421.
Moved by John, seconder.
I'll second.
Who was that?
I'll second. John Selden.
Okay, John, thank you.
Move that. Okay, that's John Sullivan.
Vote.
He moved and seconded that?
John
No,
Andrews.
Andrews moved it.
John Andrews moved it. John Selden
There's a
second.
lot of Johns going on, I'm sorry. All right, so I will call the vote then. John Andrews,
Yes.
Ian Fleck,
Yes.
Dennis O'Grady,
Yes.
Rosemary Kennedy,
Yes.
John Selden,
Yes.
Jack Van Kasteren,
Yes.
Doug Aldred.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. So I'll read this decision at each one.
No.
Read it at the end of the 4.
I think you
Yes.
can read, yes, through you, Mr. Chair, I think you can read it at the end for all 4. And then just list each of those applications when doing that final paragraph.
Okay, so now we'll do 4521.
I'll move, Mr. Chair.
I'll second.
Moved by John, seconded by Jack.
Yep.
Okay, I will call the vote then.
Yes, please.
John Andrews,
Yes.
Ian Fleck,
Yes.
Dennis O'Grady,
Yes.
Rosemary Kennedy,
Yes.
John Selden,
Yes.
Jack Van Kasteren,
Yes.
Doug Aldred.
Yes.
Motion carries.
So now we have application E4621.
I will move, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Rosemary Kennedy, second.
O'Grady.
Second.
O'Grady. I call to ask for the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. John Andrews,
Yes.
Ian Fleck,
Yes.
Dennis O'Grady,
Yes.
Rosemary Kennedy,
Yes.
John Selden,
Yes.
Jack Van Castren,
Yes.
Doug Aldred.
Yes.
Motion carries.
We'll now do E4721.
I'll move it.
Moved by Doug.
I'll second.
Seconded by Jack.
We will call the vote then. John Andrews,
Yes.
Ian Fleck,
Yes.
Dennis O'Grady,
Yes.
Rosemary Kennedy,
Yes.
John Selden,
Yes.
Jack Van Castren,
Yes.
Doug Aldred.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The decision rendered today for these applications, which are E4421, E4521, E4621, E4721, will be circulated within 15 days after the notice. There is a 20-day appeal period from the giving of the notice of decision in which any person or public body may appeal the decisions or any conditions imposed. If no appeal is received within 20 days of the giving of the notice, the provisional consent becomes final. The applicant has 1 year to meet the conditions imposed and submit the necessary documents for certification, or the consents will lapse and a new application will be required. Please leave the identification signs in place until the appeal period ends, after which they can be removed. If you would like to be notified of today's decisions, please request a copy by contacting Nancy Pasto at npasto@elgin.ca. And so our next item is confirmation of remuneration for Land Division Committee.
Mr. Chairman, that was mine. I was going to talk a little bit about the conference. Let's skip it. It's been a long day. We'll deal with that later.
Pardon?
We'll skip it. That was mine. I was going to talk about the conference, but it's been a long enough day. So let's just skip that. And I may ask to put it on at the next meeting. We'll see.
Okay, but we've got one here, and I'd ask Nancy or Dawn to speak to that.
With respect to remuneration?
The remuneration of Land Division Committee?
Yes, as well as Dennis's request, there was also a discussion that can be had with respect to multiple applications. For instance, for example, on this particular agenda, there was 4 in the township of Southold that would be in short sequence of each other. And the way that we provide remuneration now is in regards to each one would get, I believe, how much is it? It's $60 per inspection, basically. But of course, there's also been a discussion that really these are all together. And if you're going to be attending the site, you're attending all 4 essentially because they're right there. So I just wanted to bring it up because perhaps that's something that the committee could consider, and maybe what we can do is also discuss this at the next meeting. In the meantime, we can also find potentially some of that information with respect to remuneration. Right now, we have we don't have any of the bylaws or any of the remuneration policies related to the Land Division Committee. So I've asked that Rosemary in her dealings, if she could give me any copies of what she has so we can scan. And then maybe at the next meeting, we'll have more information about the way remuneration has normally been done for the committee. And then we can talk about if there needs to be any amendments to that.
And I just first of all like to say this, a bylaw is put through by the county council at the beginning of a 4-year term, and it only goes for a 4-year term. When a new county council comes in place after the election and a new land division committee is appointed, then they pass at the same time, they pass a bylaw to bring up what the remuneration is. It's in the book that you got on section 11. And that's where it comes from, but it's set by the county every 4 years. Any comments? Like, I agree in a way, you're going to 4 applications and you're right there in one spot, whether you want to review it or not.
Okay. So thank you for that information, Chair. What we'll do is we can also put this on the next agenda potentially to
Yes.
have a discussion about it. And at that time, then hopefully we can find that bylaw, find all that information, and then have a better discussion on it.
Okay, I got mine, like it was given to us, Nancy, in our book when we became members of the land division. It's
Yep,
in,
and unfortunately, when I started the committee, that
Yes.
information is not electronically available, and I actually do not have a binder like you have a binder. So that's why I was hoping to get a copy of it so we could scan everything and have them in-house and just make sure that we have the same information that you guys have as well.
how about I drop my binder off someday in the next week and you can look at it?
That's wonderful. Yes, absolutely. And if you're willing to do that, that would be very helpful. We'll scan it and save that information so we have it.
I'll drop you the whole booklet off.
Perfect.
Ian, Mr. Chair, I don't remember anything, when we were appointed, when county council approved us, that they set the pay limit. I thought that was before you guys came on board. I know it was done because they increased it from 50 to 60, because we used to get 50.
Yes, and
And they changed it from 150 for half a day to 300 for a full day.
they got a new bylaw and repealed bylaw 1902 and passed a new bylaw 2010. And it
Oh,
was
I didn't get a
passed-
copy of it, that's why, I guess.
Yes, because only the new members got it, Rosemary. We got, the
Oh.
members got the book.
That's why I didn't see it.
And yes, it was changed, but it was appointed. And the Land Division Committee is hereby constituted and the following persons are appointed. And the remuneration from January 1, 2019 to December 31st, 2022.
Okay. Sorry, I just didn't see it.
I will bring it to you and leave it with you with one of at the front, Nancy.
Yes, perfect. Thank you, Ian. Anne at the front will take it and just let her know that who you were and you're dropping it off for me.
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
So you don't need mine then, Nancy?
No, Rosemary, that's fine. If Ian's going to attend within the next week, then that's fine.
Okay.
Yes,
Because I have to go to St. Thomas tomorrow, so I would drop it off, but that's okay.
And
Ian, if you want to save yourself a trip, Rosemary is a little bit closer, so.
doesn't matter to me, whoever wants to drop. If you got the last book, Nancy or Rosemary?
I've got the last book that I got.
Okay, well, I'll drop because this
And
is
I have a few updated pages, yes.
Steve Gibson put some in.
Yes.
Remember he spoke to us about it?
Yes.
Okay, discussion on the number of applications heard per meeting.
So, through you, Mr. Chair, I think we discussed that at the beginning. So I think going forward, we've indicated that we will not limit the amount of applications that we accept for a land division committee agendas, and instead we'll rely on the local municipalities. If they feel that they are receiving too many applications that they cannot deal with, then they can ask for deferral on applications until such time as they can deal with it at their council.
It's just right now, I think we're going to see a lot of applications of people that have got areas to develop, as well as subdivisions that are longer to do where they can develop 4 lots here and 4 lots there.
I certainly agree with you.
Any further comments from any members?
Date of next
Question.
meeting?
Yes,
28th.
Doug?
I have a fear that as a committee, we've went down a road of no return on these surplus farm residences. Because today, basically, we passed 2 surplus farm residence applications, which involve no farmers, period. So I think the door is wide open. I don't even know why they even send these to us anymore.
I agree with you, because there's at least 2 more going to be coming from our area, because retiring farmers are being offered big dollars for their farms from financial groups who want to have control of some agricultural land, but they don't do anything for the community. I don't know how the rest of the members feel.
How do we address that then?
Well, I think we've got to go back to having it that what it originally was. My understanding was you had to be in Dunwich, you had to be either in West Elgin, Southwold, or Southwest Middlesex to sever it. And that's why that one that came today got deferred by Dunwich, because they were coming from Malahide. And that was and that's what everybody's concerned about right now. They can't rent those some of those farms can't be rented because they want high rents. Is that not right, Dude?
Oh, yeah, like this Ag Invest, they're wanting $380 an acre farmland for a farm that has no tile in it. And the thing is, there's people out there stupid enough to give it to them. Obviously, they don't know the difference between sand and clay, but they're going to find out. But we give these out continuously, and then, well, as Mr. McKillop said today, well, I can go back and Land Division's done it before, and I know it's happened. So I guess the thing is, if the guy that lived in your house before you was a bank robber, well, you're all right to be a bank robber. I think the only way this is going to get addressed is if somebody appeals one of these decisions we make, and then the lawyers and stuff are going to have to sit down and tell us,